Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2020. Hello again, everybody. It's the newest and brightest Jim Cornette experience of the year 2020. Today, we're going to have a recap of my holiday break, a 2019 review, a 2020 forecast. We're going to catch up with NXT. We're going to catch up with All Petite Wrestling. We're going to do all kinds of things because we haven't talked in the past couple weeks, and I'm just feeling frisky and ready to fucking fly. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, with my co-host, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. He's Swammy's Pappy, the proprietor of the French Toast Chateau, the humble, lovable New Year's baby himself, your friend and mine and his, the great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. What a pleasure it is to be here once again for another bright and sunny year of the Jim Cornette experience, making people happy from coast to coast and around this globe of ours.
Coast to coast and continent to continent, Maine to Spain on a choo-choo train. That's what we do. We put smiles on people's faces. We put smiles on people's faces. They're going to have to wipe them off with a fucking sandblaster this year. Again, that was the most enthusiastic introduction I've given you in quite some time, because even I, after a couple of weeks away from your tomfoolery, shenanigans, and thuggishness, you soccer hooligan, you bully people around, and you cast disparaging remarks.
That's only off air.
Well, I forget. I talk to you both ways, so I forget it. You're a real big bully.
No,
just
I'm
when
not.
It comes to just in person. All those people you have whacked and thumped up there in Jersey, buried up under Giants Stadium.
I'm not going to comment on this.
You know, you fought your way up from the mean streets of the gated communities of New Jersey.
Well, no, I'm from Long Beach, New York, actually.
Well, for the gated communities of Long Beach, New York.
Well,
how long was your beach is what he said. I'm Groucho Marx now. Your Honor, he punched me right after I asked him how far the old log in was. I was looking for my hotel. That's the punchline to an old joke. It involved people in the back seat of a car. Anyway, we're going to do a new program for the first time in a couple weeks. Usually, over the past several weeks, I've been saying, oh gosh, what are we going to talk about? Because of just the heaviness and the pressure of all of it. You know, we were in that rut, right? We needed to recharge. And now there's so much today, I have no idea how long or how far this show is going to run or where it's going to take us.
No, this could be a long one. There's a lot to cover. I mean, I don't know where we're going to start and where we're going to end. I mean, obviously there's a lot of stuff that happened on TV wrestling last night as we are recording, but we also haven't gotten an update from you on various issues in and around wrestling and in and around the world for 3 weeks now or so?
Various issues. Where are we going to? We said it's going to be a long one. It's not necessarily going to be a good one, but it may be a long one. So just be prepared for that. We got to say at the top of the program, which we literally, Brian and I get together because we don't want to do the show before we do the show. So we get together on the communications, Skype. I guess everybody does that now, even television. It doesn't sound cheap anymore. We get together on a Skype just a couple minutes before we actually do this. And that's when we both got on the internet and found out that Pampiro Firpo had passed away. Now we're telling people when we're recording. It's Thursday, January the 9th. Yeah. And we just saw this and don't know any of the particulars yet or whatever that much. So obviously, we've talked about the Wild Bull of the Pampas here on the program so many times over the past few years. He's in the drive-through theme song, which is the earworm that's in everybody's ear. Everybody that remembers classic wrestling remembers Pampiro Firpo. So our condolences to his whole family, especially his daughter Mary, who's been so cool, and she's kept up the Twitter account. What is it? Is it P Firpo 1? I follow it, so I don't notice anymore. I just, I think it's P Firpo 1, but it's the only legitimate Pampiro Firpo Twitter out there. But she's kept that up, and he has actually been. She's told us, Brian, you speak to her also, that he's been just thrilled that people really do. A lot of the fans still remember him, whether it's been, the times he's been out at the the functions out in California like the Cauliflower Alley Club, or whether it's, people emailing her or Twittering her or tweeting her or whatever, because of stuff that we say here on the show. So anyway, our condolences there. And what we're going to do is, just because we just literally got this, instead of trying to do something right off the top of our head, next week on the program, and we're going to have another next week plug later on in this program, but next week on the program, we're going to have Bobby Fulton of the Fantastics. He's going to talk about the upcoming event he's got going on and some of his other challenges, but also childhood memories of Pampero Firpo. I think me and Bobby has seen him a bunch because he was from Ohio, and I got to sneak a few looks toward the last few years of his career. So me and Bobby may have actually personally witnessed more Pampero Firpo than most people around these days. So we'll do that next week here on the program.
And, there's a lot of wrestlers who, from a certain era that you hear stories about them, but there really isn't something they've done that is left on wrestling, that's left a legacy on things. But with Firpo, one of the big things beyond his stellar career and all the places he went to and all the places he main evented is he, of course, was the reason that Randy Savage started saying, "Ooh, yeah," that came directly from Pampero Firpo.
Ooh, yeah. And also, when you think about it, Pampero Firpo was the missing link before Dewey Robertson, the modern era missing link.
Yeah,
was a missing link. That's how it's because he had that wild look. So he was the missing link, I think, in Hawaii, and I think he did it like in the 50s in Texas, at least. As a matter of fact, I have one of his scrapbooks that he kept. Those old photo albums had the sticky pages with the cellophane over them. That Mary had sent me from his collection, where he focused a lot on his Detroit stuff because he was the perfect opponent for the Sheik, and the Wild Man versus the Wild Man, right? And he could become the baby face because he just had that charisma. But with that look and doing the thing where he tied his long ponytail around the guy's neck and choked him in the whole 9 yards, he could be a heel, he could be a gimmick baby face, and he didn't have to change his style as he aged. He didn't have to change his style of work because it was timeless. He wasn't out there taking giant freaking bumps, right? But anyway, we'll talk more about that next week. But yeah, whether it be the original missing link or whether it be Randy Savage's, in some ways, his and his promo delivery and the cadence and etc. A lot of that is Pampero, and just every crazy wrestler that you never see anymore because nobody believes anybody's crazy anymore, right? For good reason. They only in, here's the thing. Think about this, and we'll expand more with this on this with Bobby Fulton next week. But the only people in wrestling that used to be crazy were actually fairly smart, and now all the people that the fans don't think are crazy, and in some cases they think they're smart, they're really fucking crazy
and dumb.
Anyway, so that's next week. But we've got a New Year's show packed with enthusiasm. As I said, do you know what I did after my December 21st cutoff at the post office, where I made my last trip to ship those last packages out before the holiday was over with? In the 36 hours after I got home, I think I slept 22 of them. And I kept up Bree and Lib and Steven, John the Hunchback, and the whole crew, Phyllis, everybody down there at the post office did not believe that I could keep my promise, but I did not darken their doorstep for 2 weeks and gave both sides of us a break.
Surprised they didn't start laying people off. You destroyed that photo place when you stopped doing photos in 1982.
They did go out of business. Well, no, I'm not going to wreck the post office. I'm not going to wreck the postal service for everybody. No, but I did find out actually that with what I spent in shipping there at my little window in the corner of my little branch of the post office, pretty much paid for a clerk's salary last year. And they don't come cheap. So, but anyway, so I did keep my post office break promise, but we'll have an update shortly on the shipping. Everybody should have everything by now, except for a few problem children. But I got recharged. As I said, I'm feeling frisky. I get up every morning now to attack the day. I give Harley Quinn a vigorous belly rub, I go down, I let Birdie out of the garage. I got a bird living in my garage now. Birdie.
I was going to say, who's Birdie? I haven't been caught up on that.
I got a bird living in my garage. At first I thought it was a coincidence that every time I'd walk outside in the garage, whether the door was open or closed, there'd be a bird in the garage. But then over the last couple of weeks, I've figured out that he's living somewhere in my garage, and I call him Birdie. And the thing is, I can hear him when I walk downstairs into the TV room. The kitchen or the garage is right off of that, and I can hear, as long as it's daylight. If it's not daylight yet, and I'm just up early in the morning because I had to whiz, he won't be making any noise. But that daylight, he starts chirping, chirp, 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 and I hear the melodic bird chirping coming from the next room, which is the garage. And I go out and I open the garage door and I let Birdie out. And then, because it's cold weather, the garage door is closed most of the time, but we are going about our normal day. So we're, it's up and it's down or whatever. But somehow, at the end of the day, Birdie always gets back in. So because the next morning he's in there again and he's chirping till I let him out. But it's nice to have your own personal bird to chirp at you in the morning. See, I was trying to, it's a nice thing. I'm trying to build that up. The people say I'm never positive. So I'm trying to be positive.
Better than a raccoon in the garage, I guess.
Well, no, they're nasty fuckers. Well, we won't even go into that. You can find the raccoon story on one of our previous...
That's right. I forgot about that when the raccoon got into your house.
That's why I have a lock on the exterior hatch door of one of my attics. I've got a deadbolt on it so that a raccoon cannot pry his way into my attic vent, slip down and drop kick the attic hatch door open and get into my fucking vault. It was like a goddamn, instead of an Italian heist movie, it was a goddamn wildlife heist movie. They were trying to steal the fucking St. Louis programs. I know that, and the wildlife right here got the raccoon to be the second story man, come in through the roof, kick the door open, shit all over everything. There's a deadbolt on that door now on my side, so nothing from the attic can come through.
All right.
Did that just happen for you? Did you just hear music?
What? I didn't hear any music.
Well, was it good for you? No, one of those goddamn update things from Dell just popped up in my fucking on my computer, and it made music. Anyway, so I get up every morning. I'm in a good mood. I'm rubbing the belly of the puppy. I'm letting the birdie out of the garage. I'm getting to work. An update on the Cornette's Collectibles customers at jimcornette.com. Of course, we are shipping again after our break, which ended on January the 3rd. If you guys, and this is directed just at a few people, because almost the vast majority of everybody already has their stuff they ordered before Christmas, and if you've ordered until Wednesday, June, what was that? Keep these numbers in my head. June 8th, if you've ordered before Wednesday morning. January, not June. That's another month entirely. But January, if you ordered before Wednesday, January the 8th, before that morning, your shit's already really pretty much in the mail. However, if you ordered before our Christmas break and you don't have your stuff yet, you are one of the several people who gave me incomplete addresses. Check your emails, or I'll be contacting you, because a couple of them have still persisted. If people give me a number with no street or a street with no number. We've gotten a couple of international packages sent back, like we have never heard of this person. We're trying to sort that out. We shipped almost 2,000 packages in the holiday season, and we've got about 12 problem children. But it will help if you check your address. Check it once and check it twice. Don't let your address be naughty. Make it nice. And so we got about a dozen problem children you're working out. Otherwise, everybody's either got everything. If you've ordered in the last few days, it's in the mail. And we're on a regular schedule now. T-shirts are restocked. Burger towels and Mid-Atlantic sets in the next week or so. And thank you once again to all the fine customers at Cornette's Collectibles at jimcornette.com, including our official 2019 totals for the American Cancer Society and Crusade for Children. This is not including, folks, and we've done programs about this too. Go back in the archives. I'm like AEW. I'm not going to fucking educate you. You got to go back and look at our YouTube shit. But not including Jeremy Bagley at the Charlotte Fan Fest, who we presented the big check for over $5,000. He spearheaded that fundraising effort. A lot of the cult members kicked in there. We've mentioned other separate contributions that have come in from time to time. This is not included. This is just off the merch, baby. At JimCornette.com for the American Cancer Society this year, the Midnight Express stuff, $2,750. And the Crusade for Children, which, of course, the evergreen Vince Russo restraining orders that I will sell till the end of time, as well as some of the other T-shirt offers, $1,850. So we appreciate that. So we're up over 10 grand as a group, as a result of everybody, just for those two causes. And I promise all the customers one more thing. One of my 2020 projects, we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, is either revamping, rebuilding. We have a couple of leads, a couple of the cult members out there of the very persistent kind are computer experts, I'm led to believe. And our website was not designed to handle this level of traffic, as they say. Is that what the traffic, the attention, when it was just a little website, a little spring chicken, a pup. So we may have to rebuild some things this year. So, because everybody's like, how does the website work? We try to log in and do I got news for you. If I don't tell the website I did something, it don't know. So we need more staffing possibly, but we're trying to work these things out. Holy free holy. How do you keep up with your empire, Brian, for fuck's sake? It's hard being a multimedia mogul and running all these various enterprises.
I don't know. I'm pretty good at keeping track of things.
Oh, I thought you'd have some pithy remark like, well, I follow this example or I do this instead. No, I'm just really talented, Jim.
No, I mean, there's advice I can give you off air about how to streamline some of your things and help, but I'm not going to give that advice.
Oh, I'm glad you could smarten me up in private.
Yeah, I'm not going to give free advice to everyone out there.
No. Want to expose to the whole audience how stupid I am. You'll take me over in the corner. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I've made way too much money as a consultant in my life to give shit away for free.
I could have gotten in trouble there. All right. I'll tell you one thing that they don't give away for free, and they shouldn't, because it's a miracle potion, is our friends at Omax that are making this cryo-freeze stuff. Because we've been talking about this on the show, but not since my mother-in-law was in. And I know a lot of people, mother-in-law and pain reliever jokes here. No. She's had not only a full hip replacement, but a knee replacement. And I'm not going to give her age. She's a lady, but she's elderly, or a senior citizen, as they say. And she's tried all these surgeries. Well, I'm just saying I'm not going
to give her age, but she's elderly.
I'm trying to give you a range here, you motherfucker. Now, see, somebody in the family may hear this if they're drunk and have time to waste. But no, anyway, she's had surgeries, and she's not just a brand new physical specimen. She's had a lot of pain and dealt with a lot of this stuff. And she's tried all these kind of things, taken things. And this is the only thing she said when she was here. We smartened her up and I called it a lotion before. It's actually, it's a cream. It's cream is what it officially is. But it's the same thing that we were saying. She said it's the only thing that's worked. She felt better instantly. Whether it's bad shoulders, bad necks, bad knees, bad joints, hips, whatever. The Omax Cryo Freeze, and they've got 4 pages here of scientific fucking evidence of why this shit works. I don't know. All I know is it does. You can roll it on. You can do the roll-on, which is like a roll-on deodorant. And within 10 minutes, it's got the cooling, but it doesn't stink, and it's not so greasy like the Icy Hot. And it's got the menthol, and it's got the whole 9 yards, but you actually feel better. With that other stuff, I feel like I just rubbed the shit on and I stink, but I still feel like shit. This actually relieves the pain. And my knees, as I mentioned, when the arthritis comes from having no cartilage and the bad weather. Anyway, this is my favorite sponsor now, because it actually physically prevents me from having a pain in the ass on a regular basis. So I love these people. And you can go to omaxhealth.com and enter JCE, and you can save 20% off of the CryoFreeze or anything else on the site. And I recommend the CryoFreeze, the roll-on, and the what is it they call it? The sports cream. That's the best stuff. But you've been using a couple of the other things too, right?
Well, I've been using the CryoFreeze, the roll-on, which is great. I love that. It's been great. The cream I was looking forward to using, but Suzanne's family was here for the holidays, and her grandmother stayed with us for a couple of weeks, which is always nice. She's a wonderful woman. I don't want to give away her age, but she's elderly. And
you motherfucker!
And Suzanne said, she would probably really like the cream as a gift. And I said, well, that's mine.
Well,
but she ended up getting it, so I have to buy a new one of those. But everything else has been great.
That's how good the stuff is that we get free samples of it and still spend money and buy more because everybody in the family keeps taking it away from us. Anyway, omaxhealth.com and enter code JCE, and you get 20% off of all the stuff that makes you feel better, for heaven's sake. And we need to feel better as a group of people. But I'll tell you who ain't going to feel too good, because next week I said was a packed show, right? People are now wondering, well, why the fuck don't you have a good one this week? Next week is a packed show. Not only Bobby Fulton, but also Stephen P. New will be on the program because, as we heard over the holiday break, we try to time this as close to Christmas as possible because we wanted to give certain people a Christmas gift. But most people have heard, it was especially the papers in Altoona just were all over this. We have filed a federal lawsuit in the state of Pennsylvania against Grover and the Mud Show Gang. Sort of sounds like Flat and Scruggs and the Foggy Mountain Boys, but Grover and the Mud Show Gang up in Pennsylvania, where they reside in their parents' basements, concerning their theft of my intellectual property, i.e. my actual face and my actual name, and sale of same, and who all else is named in the lawsuit, and who all they've gotten in trouble, and what possibly, if we're allowed to release this information, what verifiable lies they have already just told in public about the facts of the suit. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to talk about that next week or not, but I'm going to try to. In their public statement, they issued a number of falsehoods that are actually very easily verifiable. Anyway, next week, Stephen P. New. But here's the thing. Everybody's like, why is Cornette suing somebody that lives in their parents' basement? And it besides the fact that we don't want to set the precedent, the precedent we want to set is that anybody that sells my name and face except me is going to get their ass sued, and that is actually what's going to take place. So that's the precedent we want to set. We didn't want to set the precedent to some goof just because he gets mad at me because I tell people that he's a fucking idiot, can sell all of my shit and advertise it on everywhere from fucking Amazon to Google to all points in between. But also, whether I, at this point, wanted to even mess with this fucking idiot, this clown, a nationally known attorney went to him and said, okay, you know about Stephen P. New's offer, right, Brian? He will give any man one chance to do the right thing. And he went to Grover and the Mud Show Gang with the offer to do the right thing. Let's just drop all of this stuff. Said, stop selling this stuff, stop trying to trademark other people's shit, and we'll all move on. And they did not do it. Not only did they not do it, but they exacerbated what they was doing. They were doing that voodoo that they do, and they got in doo-doo for it. Because now they're being sued in federal court. Because anybody that fucks with Stephen P. New is going to get sued in every court in America. You may end up in front of Judge Judy. Because I know that Stephen and Judy are personal friends. You could end up in every court in America if you flaunt or flout the authority, instead of flaunting it, you flout it, the authority of Stephen P. New. And everybody that's ever been in a lawsuit, been sued, knows that you will spend money whether you lose it or not. So next week, Stephen can tell us more about exactly how many different ways and how many different courthouses he's going to have everybody from Grover to Jeff Bezos in.
And by the way, if you want Stephen to sue for you, 888-692-8084 or visit newlawoffice.com. Certainly a guy you want on your team and on your side.
You want him right in front of you where you can keep an eye on him. Because, boy, I'll tell you what, he will fuck some people up. Anyway, and speaking of fucking people up, just real quickly, we almost had World War III during the break. And people are saying, well, what's the difference in Trump killing Zabada McFernum-Snabitz, whatever the fucking this guy's name was, as opposed to, Obama killing bin Laden or whatever the fuck. For one thing, I think we know now that we can trust President Pigface to do something in the most ham-fisted and inopportune way possible. And almost rattled them up to where they were going to fucking really fuck things up. But apparently, as per Butch Reed used to say, Iran and Trump both decided that one was scared and the other was glad of it. And then did you see the statement that he blithered through where he misread and mispronounced so many of the words that someone else had written for him and he was reading for the first time where he was trying to be the tough guy? And then Lindsey Graham said, "My God, it was just like when Reagan called for the tearing down of the Berlin Wall."
I did see it, and it's become kind of controversial now because, I remember saying here on this show, there's a great book I read called Lost Tycoon, and it's about Donald Trump, and it was written in like 1993, well before he was a political figure. There's no political slant to this. It is straight up reporting about the man, his life, his businesses, and their failures. And it talked in there about how he was hooked on amphetamines. And now you're starting to see these stories come out now. This guy who apparently was, I forget what his exact role was with the Celebrity Apprentice, said he used to crush Adderall and snort it. And he's behaving just like a speed freak when you see that press conference. He can't breathe. He's snorting nonstop.
Yeah, he's snorting violently. He's blithering and snorting about, urinating on himself. Fuck. I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck. Everybody sees it now that's going to see it. So, you can't really convert anybody at this point. But if you just can't look at this guy and say, this is a dumb, stupid, obnoxious, ignorant, pissy, crooked, lying sack of shit of a man, there's something wrong with you. There's just something wrong with your fucking mental makeup if you cannot look at him and see that, regardless of which side of the fence you're on politically. And that these fuckers and Lindsey Graham, well, it was just like the Gettysburg Address from Lindsey Graham. Good
he's
God. Lindsey Graham is the George Goulas of politics. He's like oh my God, I don't know what the fuck. How did he get there?
If George Goulas was hiding his sexuality from his constituents, they'd be just alike.
I was just thinking of the blithering promos. Anyway, and by the way, just a brief mention. Did you watch the Golden Globes, Brian? It's a popular award show where many people are lauded for their work.
I just watched the Ricky Gervais intro after the fact. I didn't actually watch the program.
Well, and you saw the best part of it. Although the parts in between where he just come out with another beer and just say, piss off, it's the last one anyway. Though it was all great all the way through, but he was brilliant on the Golden Globes. I just wanted to point out, on network television, Ricky Gervais made a joke about Helen Mirren eating her own pussy. By the way, for you folks in America, that's what minge means, by the way. But I'm glad he didn't fucking tell an old Ethiopian chicken joke on YouTube, or the world could have come crashing down.
See, you would have been able to get away with it if you had just said the joke and then went, what? This is my last time doing this.
Yeah, but what? It's the last time. I should have known. I said, what? It's the last time. Nobody to care, right? Helen Mirren eating her own pussy on network television. And of course, they got the button hit for Minge on a 7-second delay, but he didn't give a fuck anyway. And I think the world is still turning. But yeah, anyway, I'm just glad he's not on YouTube where people can get their feelings hurt.
One of the highlights though is he was hitting the people in that room so well that Tom Hanks did the Cornette face at one point.
I know he did some kind of fucking facial contortion and turned to the side like, oh my God, I think he just farted in my mouth. Oh, fuck. Anyway, so, but ladies and gentlemen, and I just mean this from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my little pea-picking heart and the cockles that remain at the bottom down there, because I like my cockles warm, as a matter of fact, and numbered for just such an occasion. But if you have things like this that drive you crazy, that make you just insane in life, to just think about, just contemplate the controversies over whether it's better to talk about pussy eating on network television or tell old Ethiopian jokes on YouTube, you know what you need? You need something to calm you the fuck down.
I assume that they do, yes.
Yes. Well, that's exactly. Well, now we got it. Because here's another example of one of our fine services here on the program. We have got another fine sponsor that can calm you down. And this is it's a fucking mental thing that LeBron James is partnering with the #1 app for sleep and meditation. Now, Brian, when I first brought you on this program, you were supposed to be my anger management counselor, and you just managed to stir me up so much I just made you my partner. But somewhere or another, you got to teach me how to use an app so that I can get involved. Because now with 2020, we're going to talk about my year for the forecast for the year and what I'm going to be doing and the things I'm going to be trying to concentrate on. Health and fitness is one of them. I want to go back more strictly on my diet. I haven't gained weight, but I still eat some questionable food because I'm always rushing. I'm going to take more time and I'm going to improve my diet. That Jim Cornette fat guy's food lovers diet that I made up all for myself. And I'm going to concentrate on my mental fitness. And because we always talk about the physical fitness, but you got to be mentally fit. I can't have all this, especially if I'm going to be continuing to review all petite wrestling until the fall of fucking Rome, whenever that may be in the spring. I've got to be mentally fit also. And I've got to train my brain. I've got to get good sleep. Getting good sleep, finding time to rest is one of the most valuable things, according to LeBron James, who is a world-class athlete. And there is now a Calm app that he is in charge of and is paired up on, where it helps you sleep and meditate and be calm. And you can have access to things like fucking scenes of rain on leaves and shit and things and such and carrying on that will fucking float you into a state of mental fitness.
You could actually have Matthew McConaughey read you a story. Is one of the things on the app.
The point is, it'll calm you the fuck down. It'll put you to sleep is what it'll do. And the natural way, not in an artificial capacity. Nobody's going to have to slip you a Mickey. Folks, for a limited time, our listeners can join LeBron James in using Calm with a 40% discount to an annual membership at calm.com/JCE. You can unlock content to help you focus, ease stress, and sleep better. And I know for one that I could benefit from that, which is why you got to teach me how to do this shit, Brian. But you folks can get started because you do know how to use apps at calm.com/JCE and calm the fuck down.
That's right. Calm.com/ it's rolls off the tongue. Calm.com/JCE.
God damn it. Oh, I've hurt myself now.
Calm down.
I blew, hold on, fucking I blew Sprite up my fucking nose. When you said, come. Oh, God, it's dripping. It burns. Oh, the pain. Yeah. Oh, no.
I just want to apologize to LeBron James for how this has ended.
It's all coming out my nose now. You fucking bastard.
Well, that's calm.com/JCE.
Yeah. Calm.com.
/JCE.
Yeah. See, I was I was trying to segue into another controversy that kept me from being calm. It was a controversy of cross-calming proportions, and you made me blow the snot. But anyway, I had another Twitter controversy by accident. And one of the days of my holiday break, I get up and I've got to print some stuff off because I'm still doing business around the house. I do my, I did my year-end financial reports and I put stuff away in the attic and I straightened up the garage, got some of the things to go to Stace's sister out in California packed up, and things that I'd been needing to do that I'd neglected to do because of my professional responsibilities. But one day I got to print some stuff off. And so I just look on Twitter and somebody has sent, oh, look at this. And so I click on it because I'm waiting for the printer to go. And I see two guys, and it looks like a 12 by 12 square foot fucking ring in somewhere dark. It's an indie show. And they do 75 seconds of what it appeared to me to be a combination of floor gymnastics, a Jackie Chan fight scene from a movie, and dance moves inspired by the Western swing dancing of Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys, right? And Google that and look it up. It'll be hilarious. It was so over the top with a combination of counters and everybody coming out on top because they have each other so well scouted, and flipping and parkour and running up the ropes and blocking strikes by what looked like a fucking Western do-si-do, right? Here, you put your hand here, you put your hand there, and then I'll run past you. And it was just Cirque de Bullshit, right? So I tweeted this. I said, this is a state of wrestling in 2019, a 12 by 12 foot square ring and 84 people reacting like they're watching Ali and Frazier to a fucking dance routine or whatever the fuck I said. I don't care, right? Well, then by the time I come back a couple hours later or whatever it was, I found out I know one of these guys now. Of course, it was the little Twitter screen, and they both looked the same because everybody always does in these things. But one of them is Jordan Oliver from, I've seen his matches in MLW and called some of them. And I've mentioned him before. He's painfully thin. But he's tall, but he's painfully thin, but he's a very young man. I think he's 20 years old. Hopefully he'll grow out of that as well as some of his bad habits here. He's got a real expressive face for a heel, it has a way of getting heat and he's long and rangy with the punches and shit. So he's got something to him, but he and this other guy who I don't believe I've ever seen, I don't remember his name. It was on Twitter. But they were concentrating so much on putting together this memorized, choreographed video game routine of just over and over that it was so polarizing because when I tweet that, we got 3,500 fucking likes on that or whatever. And people said, yeah, what the fuck is this? Is this children doing gymnastics? Is this what it is? And other people, of course, oh, okay, you can't do that. Well, that's not the point. I can't do it, and I didn't want to if I could, because it's not what wrestling is. If they were calling it competitive parkour or whatever, but it's not. And we're going to talk about this more in the television reviews later on. But it's not about a different style of wrestling at this point. It's about what the fuck actually is wrestling. If people wanted this to be basketball, but they fucking convoluted the rules so that they were using the actual trampolines they use on the stunt shows for the games, one would begin to question not only the veracity and the legitimacy of the whole thing, but also the fucking point. So anyway, and I went back and forth with Jordan a couple times because I said, you got potential. Be serious. I'm not fucking ribbing you just to knock you. This is fucking ridiculous. And a lot of people felt that way also. But then here comes the promoter of Outlaw Mud Show Fuckwit Play Wrestling Incorporated that actually staged this extravaganza. And actually, Brian, and I'm not going to mention their names because not only the fact that a lot of people then say on Twitter, well, fuck, I never heard of these fucking people until you talked about them or mentioned them or had an exchange with this guy. So I don't want to give them any more publicity. But it doesn't matter anyway, the name of the group, but the promoter is up in arms, and he comes back with this, well, we've been to Japan. We were the catalyst for this wrestling revolution or some fucking horseshit. What? Meanwhile, yeah, we started this whole fucking thing, because we're so edgy, and your legacy, meanwhile, is fading, is an old man, blah, blah, blah. I wrote him back. I said, look, Jack, as Dennis Condrey would say, blah, 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 whatever the fuck. I main evented Starrcade and WrestleMania. You booked the Invisible Man. See yourself the fuck out. Because that's legitimate. That is the company that booked the Invisible Man, by the way, folks. If you're wondering whether he's got a personal issue here. Guess what, Brian? Guess what happened as a result of me telling this fucking mud show promoter off? I'm banned.
What?
He came back and announced on Twitter that I will never work for Outlaw Mud Show, Fuckwit, Pro Wrestling, ever.
I thought you meant banned from Twitter. I didn't realize you meant banned from...
No, I'm banned from Outlaw Mud Show, Fuckwit, Pro Play Wrestling, Incorporated, LLC, forever. He will never use me. I have blown my chance. I'm never going to get a job from him, and he's made it public. What repulses me these days, not only about who's allowed to be a wrestler, but who's allowed to be a promoter. And in this case, this fucking guy, and he has all the indie darlings, because if somebody, whether he makes them a darling or whether they're a darling somewhere else and then he hops on the train or whatever, all the goof wrestlers, all the play wrestlers, all the guys that stick their hands in their pockets, and the guy that wrestled the Invisible Man, and Jelly Nutella is a veteran of these things up there where they do them. And he's the guy that they actually booked their own shows in Japan and transported themselves over there so they could sell out a fucking closet. And goddamn, you could have drawn a better fucking crowd in an iron lung. But so that they're wrapped up in, well, I've been to Japan. Fucking hell. Goddamn. People who were in the 16th century who were fucking, what did they call them when they were not hornswoggled or shanghaied, when they were thrown aboard these fucking merchant ships in San Francisco after being slipped the Mickey and taken across the seas to work. They went to foreign countries also. It doesn't mean they had first class accommodations. Anyway.
Yeah, and you turned down a chance to book luchadors in Japan.
In Japan, there you go. But this company specifically, these people, I will refer to them as people. They don't just book joke matches or invisible men or a bunch of indie wrestlers that have somehow been convinced by someone that their opinions matter or that they're over or that they're important or whatever the fuck. But these are the people that disgust me, because not only do they make a joke out of the wrestling business and basically allow anybody to participate, but they're the ones, if you want to talk about who's a horrible human being and who's a terrible person and who's doing what, the same company that encourages the joke business and they encourage the wrestling is supposed to be silly crowd, they're the ones that booked the guy. And I haven't talked about him much. I think we've referred a time or two because people have asked or in passing or whatever, but I didn't want to give it a bunch of publicity. But the guy that does on video on the internet, he jumps off shit into like barbed wire and through tables and tubes and whatever the fuck, right? And that's basically what he does. That's his gimmick. He rips his shirt off and he jumps off the porch or whatever of his mobile home through dangerous chairs and shit. And somebody videotapes it, and they actually, because he's obviously a wrestling fan, but more obviously than that, the reason why I haven't just torn him all up is because the guy's obviously mentally challenged. Let's just come out and say it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but he's obviously mentally challenged. And I assume he's an adult over 18, although not by much. He ain't that big and he don't look that old, but I assume he's an adult. But somebody in his family or something has to be, I would think, is responsible for him and has allowed him to do these videos or whatever. And maybe it's great that, whatever fella's name is, has become a celebrity, but they're allowing him to do stupid shit that could get him hurt, and people laugh at him. And it's like these goddamn shows on Lifetime. They've got a 1,000-pound pair of sisters. One's 600 and one's 400. And they do YouTube shows. They've got 100-something thousand subscribers of these poor young ladies who have a lot of challenges, mentally and physically, I think. And people laugh at them and call them fucking names. And that's supposed to be the fucking woke crowd, isn't it, Brian? All these young people on the internet. It's the same thing here. So this young man's family, somebody that's responsible for him is encouraging this, but this wrestling company, in quotation marks, are the ones who booked him to be on an actual supposed legitimate pro wrestling show, to do his shit with supposed legitimate pro wrestlers. Can you imagine if this was a real business and the promoter, in quotation marks, had a conversation, Brian, with his attorneys? We're going to have a mentally challenged young man do dangerous shit with barbed wire and weapons, involving him with people that we have advertised to the public as professional athletes, in a dangerous physical performance where somebody will probably end up bleeding, and we're going to sell tickets to people to watch this, and we want a release written so that if he gets seriously injured or killed, none of us get sued. You want to have that conversation? This is the most outlaw bullshit of all outlaw bullshit. That these people that get in what is they refer to as a professional wrestling business, whether as wrestlers or promoters or whatever the fuck else they're doing there, can do shit like this, advertise to the public, call it professional wrestling, and then take the piss out of something that's not only difficult to do, but is very lucrative at a high level, and just turn a bunch of fucking people off to the whole concept of wrestling, while at the same time appealing to whatever fucking pea-brained, minuscule-minded individual is entertained by watching somebody get beat up by an invisible man. So in other words, fuck you and your fucking mud show bullshit, pal. You're lucky the state doesn't shut you the fuck down.
I miss Dennis Carluzzo.
Boy, I'll tell you, Dennis today would be a goddamn Sam Muchnick.
Exactly.
He'd be the straightest arrow in the promoting pond.
There's no, we talked about the fact that the problem is the gatekeepers, and this is a great example. There's just no gatekeeper anymore. It's just anyone who wants to do it, yeah, go for it. Come on in.
Well, yeah, why is it that people on the internet now say gatekeepers like that's a bad thing? We hate you gatekeepers. There should be, to keep fucking morons out. I don't want to go and fuck up. So we're going to talk about more of this later, but in the television reviews where we talk about other people treading on ground that they fucking perhaps should have left untrodden. But meanwhile, from the invisible man across the continent to the other side of the world on New Year's Eve at apparently it's either a show in a bar or a show promoted by bar wrestling in a fucking barn, or there's the letters BAR involved, whether they're in a bar or a barn promoted by bars. On New Year's Eve, patient zero of the comedy wrestling outbreak, Colt Cabana, who we referred to just this past week on the Jim Cornette, on the Cornette's drive-thru, as the patient zero of comedy wrestling, but at least he had the tools, and he seemed to have climbed the ladder lately because so many other people were doing such sillier shit. He, apparently after a match on New Year's Eve in the middle of the ring in front of some small amount of people, dropped down on his knees and kissed the Dick Spot guy's magic dong for New Year's Eve.
I'm not surprised.
That is not a bit, ladies and gentlemen. We're not doing a bit. And I don't know that I need to do a bit. I will just repeat the factual matter that after a wrestling match, whether they were opponents or tag team partners or whatever the fuck happened beforehand, Colt Cabana got down on his knees and kissed the outside of the trunks, of course. It wasn't full-on sucking of the knob. But he goes down and he kisses the magic dick, I guess for employing them all in these various cheap dive bars in which they compete and ply their craft, ply money out of people's pockets to see it. Kissed his little ding-a-ling. Chuck Berry's only number one hit. If you need any further evidence on sometimes on the taste of the American public. But speaking of taste, Colt Cabana had the taste, and this was after the match, so his tights were sweaty. He didn't open mouth like Anteater kiss the whole entire cockle area. He closed mouth like 70s sitcom TV married couple kissed the head of what apparently is Dick Spot Guy's very short little weenie in front of the people. I don't need to do a bit. We will move on. Unless you have any other cock news to report.
No, I don't know what to say. I mean, I've never been a fan of Colt Cabana. I've always thought he was a moron. He constantly shows that he's a moron. He is working with a guy who I hear from people in wrestling has... And even the people that wanted to book Joey Ryan, they thought him and his little act was a draw. It's drawing less and less people care. And two stupid people did something stupid in front of a small crowd. I just don't give a shit. And I'm not surprised that either one of them does something stupid. I mean, at a certain point, it's just, I shrug and I say, all right, good luck on the next bar wrestling show.
At least when I do something stupid, I do it in front of a lot of people for maximum effect.
I guess so, yeah.
That's like also, if you're going to hurt yourself, do it in front of a lot of people so at least a lot of people see it and try to get it on video if possible. Anyway, as a matter of fact, at the year end, I like to do a lot of things, including paperwork. I like to review the year 2019. As it's my New Year's tradition between Christmas and New Year's every year. I have all of my financial information done so that on January the 2nd, it is typed up and ready to go to my accountant for my upcoming income taxes that everybody will be paying in April, except Donald Trump, the President of the United States. He won't be paying any. And that involved in all the other projects and things that I did over my time off. That it takes up a lot of time because I'm a compulsive record keeper. I write down in the spiral notebook by hand every amount of money I spend over $5 and what it's for, and I get a receipt. And I write down every amount of money I take in, obviously over $5. I don't take in a lot of amounts of money under $5. I don't panhandle for a lot of change. And at the end of the year, I compile all this stuff and I hand it right to my accountant for business. And I see what this does not surprise you because you know how anal I am, right? Well, thank you. Yeah.
I meant, it doesn't surprise me. Not necessarily about how anal you are.
Well, yeah, it was a very unenthusiastic, but anyway. But no, and also you examine what have I done this past year, and what do I want to do more of, and what do I want to do less of? And 2019 was, if I had the physical and mental capacity and duration and endurance and strength to have a couple more years of irrelevance like this, I would never have to work again ever in my life. It's been a very successful year. All things considered, the best one I've ever had. It was fucking hard. So I decided I was going to examine and evaluate everything I did and remove the headaches and the stress and the pressure, right? It's a good plan, right? I'm going to do more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff. This is an idea that I should start out the year with. Don't you agree?
I think it's a fine way to start out the year. Calm and reflective.
Yes.
Figuring things out, yeah.
So the podcasts, both the Jim Cornette Experience and the Drive-Thru have set records all year. Every month we keep saying this. Every month it becomes true for number of downloads. Would you say that now just at the rate of the last couple of months, if we're doing this over the next 12 months, that both Experience and the drive-thru will be downloaded over 20 million times in the course of 2020.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that's not counting YouTube, obviously.
No, you're jumping ahead of me. Because so the podcasts are more popular than ever before. And most of the time, except when you make me just watch some of this shit that I just hate to watch.
Me?
We have good time. Well, and the people demand it. And that is what the people want. But otherwise than that, we normally have a good time having these little gab fests with each other. So we want to do more of the podcast. Podcasts are the good stuff. Very successful. And the YouTube. We've also, now that we got some of the previous problems we'd had out of the way, like unwanted partnerships and various channel mix-ups, YouTube is another. We've had record downloads over the last 6 months of the year, and I don't even know how to count that high as far as how many. It'll be a ridiculous amount, like 500 million minutes on YouTube over the course of fucking 2020, just at this pace right now. Some fucking ridiculous number like that.
And just to clarify, not downloads.
No, not downloads, but minutes. That's what I'm saying. 500 million minutes of people somewhere in this world listening to a minute of me on YouTube in the course of 2020 is ridiculous. And once again, may show the fucking taste of many of the American. But no, I'm kidding. We do a great show. But so we want to do more of the YouTube, and we're going to be expanding the podcast and expanding the YouTube and doing more of the internet projects with special audio and all kinds of stuff. We're going to do more of these things because they were very positive in 2019, right? Behind the Curtain. The graphic novel blew away IDW Publishing's expectations. With the hardcover sellout, the sellout of the first round of soft covers in Amazon and in the bookstores, and going into the second printing and selling briskly now in soft cover on JimCornette.com. Again, I am told by folks in the industry that once that you're in 5-figure sales for a graphic novel of any genre these days, that's considered very, very good and surprising, except all but maybe the tippy top stuff. So that was a success, and obviously we're not looking at doing more immediately because the current one is still selling briskly. Autographed copies available at JimCornette.com. But that's obviously something we want to do more of, and I've been talking to you off the air. I've got 2 different book projects that over the next 18 months, is they're not going to both come out. One of them is going to be, I won't say easier, but one of them is going to be more of an everyday publication. One of them is going to be something really special. So at any rate, 2 projects, and one of them is going to be pretty sharp and is going to take up a lot of my time this year. But we got 2 book projects because we want to do more of those. We did Midnight Express reunions this year in Nashville, outside of Charleston, West Virginia, down here in Madison for Gary Damron, Richmond, Virginia, Charlotte, North Carolina. Finally got Knoxville, Tennessee at the Bobby Eaton Tribute Show. And that was, once again, everything was fucking fabulous with those, not only to see Bobby and Dennis and Stan at several of them. The Rock and Roll Express were at a bunch. Bobby Fulton, as I mentioned, was at a bunch. And just so many of the guys that, you know, that I used to work with. It was exciting and had fun doing those. And I definitely want to do more of them. I'm not saying we're going to do them quickly, as we'll go over our live dates here in a little while. We've got one more Midnight Express reunion for Bobby Fulton in Circleville, Ohio in March that's on the books. I'm not against doing more, but I'm not going to be doing any live events past what I've already got for the next 6 months and probably for most of the year, if not all of it. But the Midnight Express reunions were fun. It got Dennis energized, and he wanted me to let the fans know this also, just that, you know, after what the 3 or 4 years of the health challenges that he had been through and the different treatments and the different procedures, coming out the last year and seeing everybody, and not only that they remember him, that it wasn't just the modern era Midnight with Stan from pay-per-view, but that they remember Dennis and what he contributed has really got him back in good spirits, and we appreciate that. So if I can and I have time, more Midnight Express reunions, but get them while they're hot. C2E2 this past year in Chicago was huge. The live show was sold out. Have a beef with Jim Cornette, where Al's Chicago #1 Italian beef. If it's good enough for Bob Luce, and it's good enough for you motherfuckers to shove down your neck. Met tons of fans at the Comic-Con itself. As we mentioned on the program afterwards, that's the hardest I've ever worked at a Comic-Con and the farthest I've ever walked in one weekend, but it was a great experience overall. And actually, one of the only Comic-Cons I did, I didn't do any comic book business this past year. Not my graphic novel, but I'm talking about collectible comic books, which I've been doing steadily for the last several years. I just didn't have time. So that's one thing. I'm going to be at LexCon this year in March instead of C2E2. That's why I wasn't at LexCon last year, because I was in Chicago. But I'm also going to try to do a little bit more with my comic books, because I have been slacking off and I got a bunch more wrestling shit in the vault. So I got to make some room somewhere. So that was good stuff, right? Dark Side of the Ring, the biggest hit on Vice TV ever in the history of Vice TV. They were running marathons of it, daily for 12-hour blocks. It turned out people didn't know what to think, but they saw it turned out to be a great series. The reenactments are incredible. The amount of attention to detail that Jason and Evan both, the producer and the director, had, and the insistence on accuracy. They talked to every side of the issue they could get. They researched things. They talked to neutral people to try to, put these things together. And so now this year there's going to be twice as many episodes in the second season, and I'll be in twice as many of them as I was in the first season. And we're going to have details when it's available on exactly when it's going to be. I mean, they're still in production. This is not like anything that's imminent, folks, but this season of this show is going to be the best wrestling documentary series ever produced by anybody, WWE or no, I think, just from the advance gaga that I've gotten. And that's saying something. So everything has been successful so far, Brian. Do you notice anything?
I don't know.
No wrestling yet.
Well, that's true. Good point.
The only stress and pain in the ass and headache or whatever that I had all year came from when involved with wrestling promoters. And I shouldn't even say wrestling promoters, because I didn't have any problem with Court Bauer. He's a promoter, but just wrestling. Whether it was even the Fanboy Comic-Con I tried to go to, but I was dealing with a wrestling promoter, Tony Hunter. The one fucking comic convention that fucks up is when I'm dealing with a wrestling promoter. And as I said, I didn't have any problem with Court Bauer, but I did the fill-in for MLW, and everybody loved the announcing. And, there was never a crossword with anybody, except then at the end of the last day on everybody's part, I end up in the stupid work with a warthog, which is all now that anybody remembers or talks about of the whole. I did the MLW TV for 20 straight weeks, and everybody remembers the controversy with fucking Callahan, where I was the only one that was working instead of shooting. He was really mad and really got fired, and I didn't know about any of it. We've told that story. I'm not going to go through it again. But just the drama and the fucking stupid. That's when you deal with modern pro wrestling or pro wrestlers, you deal with stupid, silly people that don't get the fucking picture. And so in this case, I ended up in a shoot work with a fucking guy who had asked me a month and a half previously to fucking work with him to continue shooting on it. I don't fucking know. So there's a headache. And I did one pay-per-view and one set of TV tapings for the NWA, and all anybody remembers is a fucking chicken joke. And once again, he was playing it joke or no. We've already established whether you liked it or you didn't. Other people thought it was hilarious. Other people didn't give a shit either way. Whatever the fuck, whatever your side of the fence, whatever side of the road your chicken was on, we've pretty much established that the level of outrage was manufactured, and that anybody who was hopping up and down mad about that line has probably never been out in public. But even if Liverlip Lagana, and that should be Dave Lagana's jazz name, by the way, Dave Liverlip Lagana, if he takes up the fucking jazz clarinet, whether he had taken any fucking credit for the edit or not, or whether he had wanted to fucking roll over for the fucking pussy fans on the fucking internet or not, here was again more headache and more pain in the ass, because what was going to be the next fucking line that everybody was going to decide to get fucking cranked up about? And it wasn't fun anymore at that point. So the stuff that I was doing for the least amount of money, that also required the hardest physical and mental work, that required me to make long ass drives in shitty weather and spend days and nights in the hotels away from homes, getting very little sleep, brought me more aggravation and headache than everything else that I was doing combined. What should I do from heretofore going forward, do you think?
Bye-bye wrestling.
And I said, this is funny because I remember a couple years ago, I've said this several times, and I keep somehow involving myself in this again because it's a habit. It's an addiction. I feel like I'm supposed to, at some point in the year or whatever, do something in wrestling anymore. Still. But 2 years ago, after the fucking TNA fiasco, where I do a week's worth of television tapings for Jeff Jarrett, and within 2 weeks after I get back from home, he's fired. The company moves to another country. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I think I said to you at that point, I don't care if I'm ever on TV again or not. Did I not at that point?
Oh, you certainly did.
Oh, you certainly did. But I never learned. So anyway, do not expect me to see me involved in any live events involving wrestling, except the big event in Circleville. There's going to be matches going on, but there's also going to be a Midnight Express and Four Horsemen reunion and a whole bunch more stuff. But don't expect to see me around anything actually involving wrestling matches, because I can't win anymore either also. Because then if I'm not on the most perfect wrestling show that was ever done, and there's something wrong with it, then people are going to say, oh, Cornette, he won't knock his own show, even though I'm saying, man, he just knocks the other shows. And I'm not going to stop knocking the other shows, because that's what we kind of do these days. So I will remove myself from being felt as being having a vested interest in something. So more comic book business, more podcasts, more YouTube, couple more books, couple of DVD projects, no live wrestling. And for the majority of 2020, at least, very few live events of any kind. So we mentioned Circleville, March 14th for World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling, a.k.a. Bobby Fulton and Hines Promotions. It will be a fan fest and a live event. And right now, it's the only Midnight Express reunion we've got scheduled for 2020 with myself and Bobby and Dennis. And on that event, as I said, we'll have Bobby Fulton on the program next week, talk about that, and Pampero Firpo. But on that event, my payoff and merchandise money that we do with the Express with the meet and greet will go to a charity in Circleville. There's, as everybody knows, that Bobby Fulton has announced that he was diagnosed with throat cancer. And in Circleville and up in Chillicothe and out in the outlying areas, there's a lot of cancer patients that have to go to Columbus, to the big medical centers, to have their treatments. And either they don't have anybody to take them, people can't get off of work, or they don't have the means to go or whatever. And there's an organization, and I've lost the name of it, but Bobby will have it for us, that helps provide rides and transportation to these patients in the outlying areas into Columbus or into wherever in Ohio, wherever the bigger metropolitan area is, to get their cancer treatments. And Bobby's been working with them, and I think we're going to do something at the show also. So my payoff and merchandise money is going to go to that group, which we'll talk about more next week. And then March 26th through 29th, LexCon. They're advertising 4 days this year. My God, pretty soon it's going to be Lex Week. But it keeps getting so much bigger. There'll be 40,000 people converging on Lexington Center and the Rupp Arena complex there in Lexington at the end of March. I will have copies of Behind the Curtain there. I'll be autographing, and we're going to do all kinds of stuff. Probably have comic books too again this year. I'm not bringing the rare toys because they're hard to transport without getting nervous about getting them beat up. But we will be there all weekend and having fun. And this August, Charlotte, The Gathering 2 from Team Art Promotions, where everybody has fun in Charlotte. That's our summer vacation. There may be one or two more. It will not be before June at least. And otherwise, that's where you'll see me in public, if you will, in the year 2020. What are you doing this week, boy?
Hey, boy. Hey, excuse me, Mr. Goulas, if you give me a moment.
What are you doing? Boy, what are you doing this week? That's another thing. A lot of people used to call people down south boy, and now you can get in trouble for that in some circles. Boy, what are you doing this week?
Nick Goulas called everyone boy, despite
a lot of people, I used to do it too until I found out, I guess you shouldn't do that.
I remember you calling Brian Hildebrand boy, actually.
Boy, what the fuck's that? Because that's what your parents called you. They wouldn't call you by your name when they were mad at you. They said, boy, what the hell are you doing? Boy, I'll slap you. Boy, I'll take you behind the woods. It was like that.
Well, this week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, another packed week of wrestling action. Of course, you can keep up with all of the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes this week on Breaking Kayfabe with Baldwin and Barry, their guest, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. Hear more at baldwinpod.com or wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. On Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam and Sean Goodwin, the boys just did 2 episodes looking at the 1989 Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards. Find out Wrestler of the Year, Best High Flyer, all the different awards, how these hold up 30 years later. Check that out.
Who was Manager of the Year that year?
The same guy that was Manager of the Year for every year until Sensational Sherry kicked his ass, Mr. Jim.
Wait a minute. Now, no fucking disparagement in Sherry's direction, but that was the year I took off. 1991 was actually, I was not active.
That was the year that you only did Joe Goodhart and the Virginia Wrestling Association.
Yeah,
so
like 6 shows.
Yes.
So,
to be fair,
I was ripe for the picking.
Was there ever a year that you were afraid you wouldn't? Did you care? I mean, when you got that, did you think I'm going to win, or did you think, well, it could be neck and neck with me and Paulie, or me and Heenan, or what did you think?
No, it was honestly, obviously, very flattering because it was a legitimate vote. It wasn't like 100,000 people voting, but it was a legitimate vote. Dave didn't monkey with that, so it was flattering. But no, I don't think I would have gone into any depressions had I not won, because I was still making the same amount of money, and it was a small little social circle at that point rather than a big fucking thing. But also, now if I hadn't made top 5, I'd have fucking freaked out. I've been like, what the fuck am I, have I lost it? Just because it was somewhat of a legitimate vote is so, but it wasn't. I didn't live and die for it, but it was very flattering.
Well, let me ask you this. What would have meant more to you in that era? Best manager or best on promos?
Oh, you definitely want to be best manager, because that's what, that's what I was doing. Because
you have such stronger competition for best on interviews than you did.
Well, yeah, but I can also understand not winning best on interviews, whereas I couldn't really understand not winning best manager. But I won best on interviews a couple of times also. So it was enough. I was not going to be a hog about the thing.
Well, hear more.
14 years in a row as Manager of the Year was enough. Or 14 out of 15, I should say.
The humble and lovable Mr. Jim Cornette. But hear more about the 1989 Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards. McAdamPod.com, available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcast. Want to make a quick mention here. Thank you to everyone for the tremendous response to the brand new Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast. Mike Sempervive has been doing a fantastic job, and Roman Gomez has been doing a great job, and the reaction has been through the roof. People have loved it. Check it out today, midatlanticpod.com, or available wherever you find your favorite podcast. They are reviewing Mid-Atlantic Wrestling week by week, but also there's been several special episodes. There was a special Jim Crockett Sr. episode, a special episode looking at Starrcade 84. So check that out today. Once again, midatlanticpod.com. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership. Well, thank you, big boy.
Nothing can bother me this year.
Episode 101 is in production. It will hopefully be out by this weekend, and it is a packed show. Popular co-host Howard Baum returns to the show to discuss a couple
Wait a minute. Popular with who? His immediate family?
He's very, very popular with the 605ers out there, and he's going to talk about a show he just went to. We usually talk classic wrestling, but I had to get his thoughts on this. He went to a show, I don't know how they did this, in South Florida, called Reefer Mania, where there was wrestling matches in the middle of apparently an open pot-selling operation with people just walking around and smoking weed and watching wrestling. I don't know how this happened, but you can hear more from Howard about that. We also review the long, elusive autobiography of the Hangman Bruce Pobans. You have to hear some of these fantastic tales that we review from this now unearthed text. I got sent it by 5 different people within like 2 days, so it's now out there. Plus, we talk with a longtime friend of the Jim Cornette Experience, Roger Smith, although maybe you don't want to admit that you're his friend. I guess
No,
I thought that highly of him.
Well, yeah, that's right. And that was a story you can hear on the YouTube channel also about the time that Roger Smith mentioned that he might want to kill himself and take all his friends with him. But anyway, whether he was the assassin or Roger Smith or Dirty Rhodes or whatever, he's still crazy.
Well, Roger's on the show to talk about one of his former tag team partners who just recently passed away, Randy Colley. You may know him as Moondog Rex, but of course, he was one of the masked assassins with Roger Smith. So Roger talks a little bit about
he worked. Did Randy ever work with Jody? Also,
he did.
He did. Yes,
both of them did independently of each other. They worked with Jody as assassins. Luckily for Jody Hamilton, there was always a pool of assassins that he could go to just pluck one away. But also, Hustler Rip Rogers returns to the show to talk about Izzy Slapowitz, who just passed away, as well as a bigger talk about ICW wrestling. Did you ever meet Izzy Slapowitz?
I never did. I watched him on television, but I never met him.
Of course, the manager of the Devil's Duo in ICW. It's a really cool talk because it goes beyond ICW. They first met working for the Culkins, which is a long-forgotten outlaw organization that was running against Watts and Leroy McGurk. And also, in the main event, a pretty long interview, exclusive and extensive, with Scott Teal. A lot of people have been saying, where is Scott Teal, one of wrestling's premier historians, the publisher of Crowbar Press? Well, he goes into detail here about what's been going on. He recently resigned from the Cauliflower Alley board of directors. He goes into detail about why exactly that happened, and I think a lot of people need to hear this. And he also talks about, he recently did a book. He wrote the book for Rocky Johnson. He wrote Rocky Johnson's autobiography, although, again, It's not really an autobiography if someone does all the work. But it has now been pulled from the market. It is now going to be like the Gary Hart book, where it's going to be very hard to get him. I know Scott has some on his site, but it has been pulled from the market. If you see a copy, grab it, because it's going to become a collectible. We get the backstory. What happened with Rocky Johnson and Scott Teal, and how does that all tie into what happened with Scott Teal and the Cauliflower Alley Club? I think everyone's going to want to hear it. The 605 Super Podcast, 605pod.com, are available wherever it is that you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership.
Scott's a great guy. He's done some great books. He's been around wrestling since the early 70s now, and I love his publications. But also, so this will answer the question of where has Scott Teal been lately? Because, he's older than me by a couple of years. I was jealous of him because he was older than me, so he got into the photography thing and got to meet all those wrestlers a couple years before me. But since he is older, several weeks ago, his doctor advised him he should be walking 2 to 3 miles every day, and that's what he started doing, and it's been 6 weeks now, and we don't know where the fuck he's at. So
no. But
we'll find out more about that this week. But anyway, anyway, folks, you may not have noticed it, but that was a carefully covered up edit point in the program because we needed to take a break. And I'm just going to relay this information, or delay it as the case may be, to the folks out there, because I'm so excited about the brand new year and I'm just chipper and positive about everything. When I took my morning Russo in the office bathroom this morning, it left the toilet in a state of classic disarray. Everything did not go as it was sent to the city. And instead of doing the right thing, I just decided to go ahead and try to flush it again. And it didn't work again either. So I'm going to have to break down and do the proper things to this obviously malfunctioning toilet bowl. But with that, let's talk about the Wednesday Night Wars.
Yeah, let's get off this and talk about anything.
So I just thought that would be a nice segue to bringing real life issues into the program. I've watched most of NXT. I missed, unfortunately, something with the DVR. I don't know, but it didn't record the program the week that Rhea Ripley won the title. But I saw the video afterwards and the videos that they did beforehand and the push and the finishes they've done. NXT is making people stars. They have taken Rhea Ripley from square one with any type of mainstream audience and made her a superstar. And that celebration with everybody holding her up and everything, that was, and you love Rhea. We all love us some Rhea Ripley.
And the match was great. I actually am upset you didn't get to see the match. I
know.
The match was fantastic. She is so good at selling. I mean, just all the little things for someone so young. You know, she's very much like MJF, someone who's really young, but has a lot of the small things down in a way that a lot of these guys who have been around the indies for a lot of years don't.
Yeah. And you can't teach that because it's natural, because if you are a fan of wrestling and start watching wrestling, if you really get it, you see things. And if you're really good, you're able to do those things. Sometimes people see them but can't do them. And other times people could do them but they can't see them. But when you can see them and do them, that's when you become a star. And so with NXT, it's random thoughts because the program is consistent and they've closed the gap in the viewership and it fluctuates or whatever the fuck. But, you know, once again, they have had a battle plan and they've executed it, and it doesn't look like a schizophrenic television program. Everything that Adam Cole does is gold. His entrance, his promos, his look, his work. I'll watch anything he does. He's a top guy. He's going to be a top guy for a long time to come. I like Cameron Grimes as an underneath guy because he looks different. He's got a different gimmick. I love that double foot stomp. I don't know how he does that. I know how the guy's taking the bump, but I don't know how he can get up there and do that pause.
But you say underneath guy. I think he could do better than that.
Well, no, but hear me out. I like him where he is now as an underneath guy. I'm not saying he can't be a main event guy, but they've had him do some ha-ha. They're presenting him as a middle card guy now. He's lost as much as he's won from what I've seen. He does ha-ha with other middle card guys because that's the spot he's in now. But he stands out and he's different and he can do shit. And at some point, he has the ability, if it's decided they're going to use him that way, to move up and to be but not with what they're doing with him now. But he's good. He attracts attention. He's different. He stands out. I will say, remember I've said how bad I hate triple threat matches, three-way matches, and just do them all the time for no reason, every promotion. It's bullshit. They actually had the first triple threat match, and I don't know how long, that I've liked and that there was an actual legitimate reason for. Ciampa and Lee and Finn Balor. All three of them had issues. They wanted a title shot. This was December 11th, the show, I think. They had a great triple threat match. They did good spots that were done well with no real cooperation, supposedly, between the opponents. They had an incredible finish. The timing was fucking fantastic, where Keith Lee had just hit that fucking power bomb, and here came Balor with the double stomp. So Ciampa was out of it, but Balor stole it. The timing was excellent. That, if you only had a triple threat match like that once every year or 18 months, they would still draw and it'd still be meaningful, just as a gimmick instead of just everybody doing it for no fucking reason. I don't know if Keith Lee, you never see good promos on this fucking show besides for Adam Cole. He can do it, but all the promos on NXT sound to me to be written, rehearsed. Most of them are in the sit-down setting. Nobody just goes out there and goes off. I think that's a problem. And I wish Keith Lee, if he could do a live promo and get mad and fucking vow mayhem on somebody, he'd be a scary motherfucker. But apparently he can't, or they'd let him done it.
All the promos other than Adam Cole, and even I think Rhea and Shayna are both really good on the mic. But yeah, they're all wooden. I mean, they're all just throwaway. I'm reading a script. I'm saying something that doesn't sound natural. I'm looking in a weird direction while the camera's on me. There's a weird ending because I'm done reading the script, but the camera's still filming me and I don't know what to do. So I'll stare at you or I'll look the other way. God forbid I look into the camera. But Adam Cole may be, and there's some really good ones out there. And, you know, MJF's been spectacular. Jericho's been great.
But we're talking about NXT.
But Adam Cole may be the best guy overall. He may be. I'm not even sure. I hadn't thought about it.
And even he, I know, is instead of off top of his head, he's delivering something. Somebody's prepared for him, but he's so good that it doesn't seem like it. So he can suspend the disbelief. But that's what I was saying earlier. What people say are different styles of wrestling aren't different styles of wrestling. It's good wrestling versus bad wrestling. Good wrestling, regardless, there used to be a million styles. There was the old fucking Southern style. There was fucking Midwest style. There was the Texas style. There was the Lucha style. There was the Japanese style, whatever the fuck. But if wrestling looks good, halfway realistic, is logical, makes sense, guys who look like stars performing same, regardless of what the style, whether it's World of Sport or brawling or fucking hard-hitting strong style, whatever the fuck, that's good wrestling. Silly, phony shit with moves over and over that makes no sense or performed by shitty-looking talent is bad wrestling. So we're not talking about different styles of wrestling. There's different styles for everybody. And I say that fucking people who compete with goddamn stuffed toys or inanimate objects or fucking invisible people or other fucking goofiness is not a style of wrestling. Where this retains to NXT is at least they're not schizophrenic. Some of the stuff is just middle card guys that you know are going to be middle card guys having quality athletic performances of various degrees of goodness, nothing special. And then the top guys are really top guys and they're executing at a high level. And they got too many girls matches on NXT, but they've also got all the best girls. So I don't need to see as many girls matches, but if I'm going to watch a girls match, I want to see an NXT girls match because they have many girls that can fucking tear the place down, Rhea Ripley being one of them. But there's nothing fucking insulting or silly or stupid on this show, and there's nothing even really in the realm of entertainment that doesn't at least make some kind of sense in their overall presentation. Am I missing anything?
I agree. I get sick of the women's matches on AEW, and we'll certainly talk about that. But on NXT, I don't mind it as much because I think they can work. The division makes sense. I kind of understand what everyone's objective in the world of kayfabe is in their matches, who they're mad at, why they're mad at them, what may or may not happen, depending on the outcome of the match. So I don't mind it as much. I think the NXT women's division is one of the highlights of wrestling right now, at least at the top. And I will say, I did hate the open of the show where it went this week, where it was just one girl after another coming out with their music playing. No one noticed each other in the back getting ready to come out, obviously.
I have not seen this week's show yet. This was my impressions from December and January 1st or whatever the fuck.
Well, this week's show opens, Rhea Ripley's in the ring. It's the first, I guess, live promo. I didn't watch last week's show because I thought it was a year in review. If it wasn't, I missed something. But Rhea Ripley's in the ring. You know, she's the new champion talking. And then one girl comes out, her music plays to get in there and challenge her. Then another girl comes out, her music plays to challenge both of them. Then another one. And it's nothing about the individual women's wrestlers that I have a problem with. It's the way they're being used there and just the ridiculousness of it. I didn't like that, but look at who's in there. I'm high on Bianca Belair. Rhea Ripley's fantastic. Shayna Baszler and her crew, well, it's more Shayna than the crew, but the crew serves a purpose, I think, more as like muscle than actual in the ring matches.
Right.
But, you know, Candice LeRae, who, you know, she can work. Toni Storm. I mean, it's just one person after another who can actually go. And they all explain why they want a match. But again, it's just a bunch of people coming out and boom, you're in a 6-man. Or, well, not 6-man. 6-woman match.
6-person.
6-person.
6 individuals. A 6-human match. Oh, wait, that we couldn't have Chris Statlander. Well, she's on the other show. We're not talking about her with humans. But that's the thing. Wasn't it supposed to be All Elite Wrestling that was supposed to be the high level in ring and the serious pro wrestling show with a sports based presentation? And isn't NXT a division of the evil empire that's made clown show fucking sports entertainment all this time? And are we in some kind of bizarro world here? That the serious program is NXT and where all the goofy gaga happens is over on the sports station. And that's because NXT, whether you like it or not, and we're going to get into this with All Elite Wrestling, it's being run by experienced fucking people that know what the fuck they're doing and have picked the right team to do it with. And they have a vision and a purpose, and they don't have inexperience and people who are in over their heads and in some cases are not aware of that fact. And I'm not even knocking anybody with that, but so many of the All Elite Wrestling personnel have never done this shit before on television at this level. You can't just walk on a national television and produce segments and book wrestling and do this. I have watched Family Guy since season 1, as I've mentioned many times. I'm not going to walk onto the set and start writing it or tell the animators how to do their job. Tony Khan, and it was mentioned on the PW Insider website this week that he is heavily hands-on with some of these segments, which is what I was afeared of when I was first contacted by Mr. Khan, is the reason why I didn't have a lot more further contact with him, in addition to the fact he mentioned who he was going to be going in business with. And that's not a knock on Tony Khan, but if you're a brilliant heart surgeon that makes a ton of money, and then you buy a restaurant, I don't expect to see you cooking. And that's the problem, is a lot of people didn't realize that you can't just walk in. I've watched the Louisville Cardinals play basketball for 40 years. I'm not going to walk on the court and coach them and tell them what fucking plays to run before I've ever played high school basketball. It's an insult to the business when you expect, yes, you always need new faces and new talent, but you don't need all new faces and all new talent in all positions of a company where only a couple of them actually know apparently what the fuck they're doing, and expect them to run same company at a major national level. Am I missing something here, or is that disrespectful to how hard pro wrestling is to fucking present properly?
I think one of the things unique about wrestling, and I mean, maybe it's about everything else. I mean, you listen to sports radio, everyone knows more than the manager. But professional wrestling, especially if you're someone who's read the newsletters for years, I'd say the majority of people think they can go in there and just book. I'll have better ideas. I'll be able to go in there and do things differently. I'll be able to shake things up. And maybe there is a very, 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 very small group of those people who could go in and make a positive difference. But I think some people delude themselves into thinking that they're smarter than they are when it comes to professional wrestling. And some people also may make them believe that by saying, yeah, that's a great idea. But
There's a lot of different things involved. If you're a producer of matches or an agent or whatever they call them these days, it's not just being able to come up with a good finish. It's explaining how to execute it. It's the verbal ability to communicate, to impart exactly what you want, the story you want told in a promo or in a match, or the way things in a match, the timing of a finish is as important to explain as what the actual finish is. Or a lot of times, it looks to me in some cases, a lot of times like, when you leave a guy, in some cases, to pick his own entrance music, he picks his favorite band or his favorite song instead of what fits him and how he should be presented to the public, and that needs an editor. And there's a lot of things going on here where these guys are standing and falling on their own merits because there's not one person in charge. The last 2 weeks of AEW, January 1st and January 8th. Let's take them, and I want to make a few points. We'll try not to delve into goddamn minutia, as Bill Watts used to say. The January 1st show was it started out with that great opening package where they brought people up to date. Of course, they didn't have competition from NXT. It was a package show. So they could do a great opening video package. And if any of they focused on the elite members and their trials and tribulations. And if any of the elite members were over, with the exception of Cody, this would have been an incredible package. But but since they're not, and their television program hasn't done anything to do that, it didn't mean anything.
Now, someone's going to hear you say that, and someone's going to say, how could you say the other members of the Elite, being Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, aren't over? The people in those buildings go crazy for them.
Exactly. The people in those half-full buildings are going crazy. And the people on television, which is the number is about half of where they started, are going crazy. But they have not converted anyone to their religion. They're not broadening by the way they've been presented and by the way that they've worked. As we talked about a couple weeks ago, they started the promotion like they were already over with everybody. And then they've been trying to get other people over by doing jobs for them, when the only people they're over with are the people that were already going to be watching this anyway. There were other people on national television that can be impressed. So if you get the loudest pop in a half-empty building, that doesn't mean you're a huge draw. That means you're the most popular guy in a fucking moderately warm promotion. Everybody's talking how hot it is. It's hot because the guy financing the thing had the money and the contacts to get all these people in front of all these people. And they're dropping the ball with it. The January 1st show told me that they should immediately make Taz and JR the announce team and send Excalibur, or Exhibit, as Brandy called him, to the old fucking retired outlaw wrestlers home and let Tony Schiavone do interviews. Because that was the first time I've ever felt some kind of energy and professionalism from the announcing. Taz is great. He was trying a little hard at first, but he was great. He wanted to stay up with everybody. And that's the show that had the Darby Allin versus Cody match. And this was the best Darby Allin match I've ever seen, because Cody was leading it and Cody was pacing it. And everything they did made sense. They used Arn a bit as the coach. The pace went up and down. The spots paid off. Cody sold the shoulder and made all of it. He put everything together where all of Darby Allin's moves went to the injured body part or affected it or made sense.
There was a dive that Darby Allin did during that match that was great, because I'm not a big fan of the dives because they've been so overdone. But he actually hit Cody. He actually laid into him.
It wasn't like it just, I'll push off you and land on my feet. It was like he drilled him and he went into the fucking rail. And, the point is, it showed Darby Allin can work, and he has charisma, and he's physically a very unique guy. And his size was, even though Cody is so much bigger, his size didn't look like a detriment here because they worked it to make sense. There was a couple things. I don't know why referee Aubrey let Darby take the buckle pad off and just not do anything to replace it. I wish they didn't do that goofy coffin drop on the apron. Bleh, that's just too dangerous, but also it kind of fucked up there were several things that the finish was fucked up on a couple of different ways, and I don't know whether anybody much caught it, but Darby Allin kicked out of the crossroads. I think that may have been a step too far. He shouldn't have kicked out of that. I don't think Cody should have hit it for him to kick out of it. But what was fucked up about the finish was the second time that Darby goes to do the coffin drop. This was off the top into the ring. Arn, as coach, jumps up and pats his knee, and Cody brings the knees up and Darby lands on the knees, but the announcers had stooged it on the coffin drop on the apron when JR's like, I think he got his knees up, because they thought that was supposed to be the fucking one. So, and then on the replays, and maybe somebody said in their ear, no, that's not the one. So they say, oh, it looked like he got his knees up, but he didn't. But then that was the finish. Why do the coffin drop on the apron and hit it, whether you hit it or not? It's so much more dangerous and so much more, oh my God, than the coffin drop in the ring to begin with. And it's not like everybody didn't know that he does the coffin drop, so you didn't need to set it up. The coffin drop, the finish should have been the one off the top into the fucking knees. Oh my God, boom, 1, 2, 3. And the announcers wouldn't have been able to fucking stooge it off early, and it would have made more sense anyway. But nevertheless. But that, it just goes to show you can take these young guys, a veteran can, somebody that knows what they're doing can, and that's the way they learn. But they can't learn by going in there with other guys that are going to try to do all the goofy spots repetitively over and over 100 miles an hour for no reason, because then they just, you establish that as a good habit in these guys' minds instead of a bad one. Cody and Dustin are having the best pro wrestling matches, even better than NXT. NXT, they're taking more bumps and doing more incredible athletic shit, but the best pro wrestling matches on Wednesday night are being had by Cody and Dustin Rhodes and who they work with and lead through these matches. Anyway, what do you think of old Darby?
I like Darby Allin because he's unique. I mean, he loses a little bit of his uniqueness when there are other small guys on the roster. But the fans react to him. He has a unique look. I think, like you said, I thought the match with Cody was good. I think they've tried to use him well. I think one of my biggest complaints about Darby Allin actually would be the booking of him, in that they give him something like this. You know, it's not a great comparison, but it's almost like when you guys tried to get Brian Pillman over in the fall of '89. But imagine if you did that and then he was off TV for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you give him something, then they take it away, or they don't focus on it, or then or he's in with somebody else that he just does all the stuff and it doesn't register.
He has the match with Luger, and then you don't see him for a while. And that's the one thing with Darby Allin. It feels like they do something with him, and then you don't see him. And then all of a sudden, he skateboards down the ramp, he's back in the mix, and then you have to wait to see what they're going to do with him. But I think there's something with him. It's, I said it before, like a modern, it's not the perfect comparison, but a modern Jeff Hardy, in that it's a unique charisma. He wrestles a different way than the other people in the heavyweight division, if I'm going on the idea that he's going to be in the heavyweight division. I like Darby Allin. I think there's a lot of potential there for Darby Allin.
And then basically, it's a schizophrenic television program here. You have these great pro wrestling matches where a point is made in a finish and a guy actually gets over, and then you have, as we'll talk about in a minute, then you have the other stuff, and nobody's leading this pack. The next match on that show was the 4-way for the women's title: Nyla Rose versus Britt Baker versus Shida versus Riho. And I will give you the short version. I wrote copious notes while I was fast forwarding. This match went 2 segments. They broke a table for no reason. And finally, to give Nyla Rose a spot where she actually looked like something before they buried her again. And finally, the bigger Japanese schoolgirl hit Nyla Rose with a big slam, picked her up and slammed her, huge slam. And Nyla Rose just rolls out of the ring and is never seen again. And then their only chance at an American female babyface was pinned in quick fashion by Riho, the 98-pound Japanese schoolgirl.
And they're clearly turning her heel, Britt Baker.
Well, they better, because they ruined the fucking babyface aspect of it, so they might as well. But, once again, and yes, they are all admitting now, yes, Kitty Olivier is spearheading the women's division. He wants to bring this quirky fucking Japanese cult fetish shit that he gets into over in the Roppongi district or whatever. He wants to bring it to fucking TNT television, and they're beating every babyface and heel girl that could be a star to put this fucking mousy little schoolgirl over.
She likes to play with his Sega.
Omega! All right, then, after the best pro wrestling match of that night with Cody and Allen, followed by the girls being buried again by the schoolgirl, backstage interview Jelly Nutella. As he starts off there with, I believe it was Alex Marvez, who has reactions as realistic as a lump of clay. You can see blonde hair. Now, shut up now. you can see, except if you want to laugh some more, you can see blonde hair slightly behind Jelly Nutella's ass as he's standing there. And just as he starts speaking, it looks like he's going to puke because he's had too many fucking beers at the Blink-182 concert. But then suddenly they widen out, and there he has been nutshotted by Penelope Ford, who was obviously staged there from the start of this interview, and allegedly unbeknownst not only to Jelly Nutella, but also the interviewer who was standing looking behind him is surprised allegedly as well. And Jelly Nutella sells it phony, and then Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian, who is barely bigger than Penelope Ford, walk off because they're both super bad. What the fuck? And apparently they've done it in real life. She hit him in his balls and walked off with Kip Sabian. And so now they're doing angles about their goddamn immature, fucking childish, fucking play wrestling talents, fucking immature, childish, goddamn relationships.
You know, but there's another example. Let's take the fact that it's Jelly Nutella out of the equation. It's Wrestler X. Wrestler X doesn't appear on the show for a few weeks. He appears on the show for a very short promo segment where he gets attacked. We can forget about Alex Marvez's bizarre reaction to this attack. And then the other two people that attack him walk off, and that's the last you hear about this guy for a few weeks. Yeah. I mean, just, again, it just...
Well, and besides, nobody knows that Penelope hit Jelly in his little tallywhacker and walked off with Kip Sabian in real life, except for people that read the internet. So everybody's watching television just going, what the fuck, who are they, who, what?
You know, I think the idea of doing a Jelly Nutella Kip Sabian feud with Penelope there makes some sense. If these guys can work together, use that. You know, take real life and apply it to this. Maybe someone will care. But even the way this was booked is just, it makes no fucking sense. Like you said, unless you follow indie wrestling gossip, you don't know exactly what's going on or why, and nothing's explained to you by the commentators. I don't know if the commentators said one word about that after it.
No. Well, because they were trying to forget it like, you know, everybody else had, because it was embarrassing. Anyway, next match, Trent, one name only, versus Jon Moxley. And real quickly, I've said before, Trent has talent. These guys can both work. They had a good match. Orange Cassidy had to come in for a distraction just so he could shove his hands in his pockets, and then Moxley could shove his hands in his pockets and give him the big, well, fuck, suck this or whatever. But I can't believe that they intermingled this clown, Orange Cassidy, with a supposed main event talent, even that much. But then the finish, Trent hits him with a pile driver. Boom, 1, 2, he kicks out of a pile driver. Good-looking pile driver. Then Moxley fucking foils Trent coming off the top rope and hits him with a double arm DDT on the ramp. Boom, gets back in the ring, and so does Trent. And then another DDT in the ring, 1, 2, 3. And then Moxley gets up, and he's slightly selling his neck from the pile driver. They can work, but why did they have to add the extra fucking dropping on somebody's head in there? Anyway, Guevara comes the ring, intros Jericho on the screen, and that's where Jericho tries to talk Moxley into joining the inner circle, because there's a lot of recruiting going on in these programs. Everybody wants to join a group. But he offered, and Jericho was great. He offered Moxley to be co-leader of the group, 49% of the LLC, an EVP position, which executive vice president, which had to be fucking an in-rib, and a Ford GT worth millions of dollars, which apparently we found out was Tony Khan's father's car. And it's actually only worth $750,000, but who's counting? But Jericho builds this whole thing up, and then Moxley is like, well, all of you will find out next week, and walks out. And I know they're going to go for the swerve where they think he joined, but then he didn't join, whatever. But couldn't Moxley have turned to Guevara and said, tell you what, I'm kind of interested in that offer, but tell your boss I don't deal with fucking errand boys. Come in person next week and fucking boot him and drop him. And then he could have left the room instead of, we'll tell you next week. Yeah.
I agree.
Anyway, lackluster. Here comes Dustin Rhodes versus Sammy Guevara. And Dustin Rhodes is the second best worker on the show next to Cody. It was strange that he bounced Guevara around for a while. Guevara's a nice fucking chicken shit heel. Hager comes to ringside dressed like a soccer dad, as he usually does, but distracts Dustin for the heat spot. And then Guevara gets a little heat on him. He gets a little sloppy in the closing minutes, but he's green and he was anxious. But then once again, the one thing Dustin did, he did a Canadian destroyer on Sammy Guevara on the apron of the fucking ring. And he's not winning the match, and Guevara's continuing. I know, Dustin, you've already proved that you're the best 50-year-old worker in the business. You don't have to do a Canadian destroyer on a guy half your size on the apron of the ring. And then after he did that, Dustin backdrops Guevara over the top rope to the floor on top of Hager. A minute later, he beats him up. He sets him up for the ball kick, and then Hager comes in behind the referee's back and nut shots him, and Guevara, fresh as a daisy, comes off the fucking turnbuckles and covers him. Boom, 1, 2, 3, and celebrates. After he's been Canadian destroyered, backdropped over the top, beaten up, tied up in the buckle for a ball kick. Dustin was trying too hard there with the young man, but I saw where they were going, but he did too much. It was too much. But once again, the Rhodes brothers in the ring can do almost nothing wrong with almost any of these guys.
Go ahead. After this week's show, or during this week's show, I put on Twitter, if I never see another Canadian destroyer, it will be too soon.
Yes.
It's way too frequent now. Everyone's doing it. Ricky Morton does it. Dustin Rhodes does it. The young guys do it. The luchadors do it. I don't need to ever see this move again. It's just, it's the DDT was never even abused this much. You know what I mean? It's just,
and besides that, the DDT, actually, you could really tell at first glance who was getting dropped on their fucking head. The Canadian destroyer's a fucking monkey fucking a football. You don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, following that, MJF's promo about Cody, I will just say this. I aspire to be Maxwell Jacob Friedman. He is the best TV performer at this age that I've ever seen. His verbiage, his delivery, his expressions, his body language. I love the way that they shoot him close with the floor cam in the ring because the facials. He delivers so much to the camera. He's laying out all the stipulations on what fucking Cody has to go through in order to get him at the pay-per-view and the blah, 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 and talking about whipping the flesh off his body. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant pay-per-view promo, and it's a brilliant promo to begin with. And I don't know why they don't, in the first hour, have MJF cut one of these promos, and in the second hour, give him a squash match against somebody just so he can beat somebody and just show what he can do there, too, because he never wrestles. And they shouldn't be 20-minute main event matches. He should be beating competent-looking people in quick fashion and being a heel doing it. But he ought to be on twice a fucking show. And Uncle Dave, our favorite observer, keeps saying, well, they have too much talent. That's like the old line about, is he two-faced? No, if he was two-faced, he wouldn't be wearing the one he's got on now. If they had too much talent, they wouldn't be using the ones that they're using over and over and over a fucking again. I've seen the goddamn best friends on every fucking show. What about the Dork Order and the Creepers? The Meme Street Posse, as they call them. I'm
even sick of the Lucha Brothers, to be quite honest with you. And I know they're fantastic in the ring, according to everyone, but
according to everyone,
I'm sick of them. I feel bad saying it. I feel
the same thing. I'm going to pull a glove off. I'm going to slap you in the face with it. I'm going to do my catchphrase. While I'm standing there pulling the glove off, why don't somebody just kick him in the fucking balls? It's fucking stupid. And after MJF's promo, then they buried Britt Baker further because she did a backstage rotten, stagey promo that should never have aired. Somebody should have been responsible for it. If it was a pre-tape, somebody should have got their nuts cut off. But it was rotten and stagey, and Riho stood there looking like a scared child as Michael knock it the fuck off and get off my television, tried to interpret for her what the fuck was going on around her. And we go from that to a six-man with Olivier and the Young Bucks against the Lucha Brothers and Pac. And that's where straight off Pentagon gets his glove taken away from him and sells a slap in the face with an empty glove. It staggered him and knocked him several feet backwards. And this match immediately goes to shit. It was immediately 100 miles an hour. Video game wrestling, no pause between anything or anything that you can follow or absorb or believe. Repetitive move after move. They tried to milk the heat between Olivier and Pac, but for all the reasons that Cody and Darby Allin was the best match, this one was the worst. And at one point, then finally they get Olivier and Pac in there and they hit each other with at least 10 finishes or moves or strikes or whatever, and nobody won anything or even mostly covered anybody. And then they all broke into a bunch of choreographed shit where you couldn't tell who got hurt by the move that was given. And at one point, I think this was the match. I've watched 2 of these shows and it's always the same with Olivier. But he'll hit that goddamn Snapdragon suplex. That's the fairiest, sissiest sounding name for a fucking move. It looks like it'd break your neck that I've ever heard. But the Snapdragon suplex, one time he'll drop a guy on his head and he'll sell it like $1 million. Next time he drops it on his head, it looks the same and the guy pops up and does something to him. But then the back and forth, then Pac hit his finish off the top and the Bucks made the save. And then suddenly Olivier hit his finish on old Felix or Phoenix or whatever, 1, 2, 3. And so the only real main event talent in an American promotion that's ever going to be potentially might get over in this match was Pac, and he was buried because every single move of his was landed and didn't work on anybody. So I don't know what the fuck they were trying to prove here. And that was the main event. Your thoughts?
You know, the last couple of weeks, my middle daughter decided to turn off Disney Plus and come hang out with her dad in the office and watch All Elite Wrestling.
Well, she'll not make that mistake going forward.
Well, she's still trying to figure out what's going on, like we all are. And she watched this match, and I think it was when Nick Jackson, he's the one losing his hair, right?
Yes.
When Nick Jackson was in there with Phoenix, she said, "This looks like a routine." And, you know, she's a gymnast. She's done dance in the past. And I thought that was really, really telling because she's not a wrestling fan. She's not watching with the critical eye that you would or someone who's been a longtime fan would. She's coming into this fresh. She didn't know who they were. She said, "Who's this guy? Who are these two?" I'd say they're brothers. She goes, "Oh, wow, they're brothers. That's cool." It looks like they're doing a routine. And you know what? They look like they're doing a routine. There's too much of that on the show. With that said, if you're going to try to do the first show of the year in Jacksonville and tailor it for the AEW audience, that was probably the right show to end the show with, and it was probably the right result to end the show with, finally giving those guys a win. What did you think of the Adam Page stuff? They finally given a little bit of a personality where he likes to drink and he doesn't want to be involved with these other guys. What did you think of that?
I don't care. I'll tell you, well, let's go to the next week, and I'll tell you why some of it I don't care is. Because I think they've missed the boat. Now they're trying to switch him heel because apparently they thought, well, he'll never get over with all these top baby faces like the Young Bucks and Olivier. But the very first match on the January 8th show, which, by the way, was commentated by Dave Brown, this match. And I guarantee you, he probably thought that for the first time in his life, he had taken drugs. And it was nice to see Dave on television. He didn't say much. He just said enough. He's the kind of guy, he didn't want to they had to talk him into doing it, I'm sure. And he didn't want to steal anybody's time. And he didn't know anything about these guys because I assure you, Dave doesn't watch wrestling anymore. But he was very professional. But the very first match on the next show is Paige and Olivier. After they've teased the thing, he didn't want to celebrate with him. He didn't want to come drink with him or whatever the fuck it was, against Private Party. So you're starting off a match in the Memphis area now with the same one as you're giving to the AEW crowd basically last week, which is all high spots and bullshit. Of course, we had jazz hands finger pointing and making faces from the get-go. I hate every single one of Private Party's tights and outfits. I don't know what the fuck what the fuck? I just don't know. Mark Quinn is great. Both of them are green. And Cassidy, maybe it's just a syndrome. He's standing next to a guy that's just so special. But Mark Quinn will be a star at some point if he doesn't hurt himself or they don't just fuck him up royally. But right now, they both need a lot of seasoning, Private Party. And at one point, that Cassidy, if you saw, he's fighting out of the corner and he throws an elbow back and potatoes Kenny Olivier and then throws a punch at fucking Page and then goes back and Omega, I'll call him, since he got fucking tatered, I'll call him by his fucking supposed name. Omega is still down selling like, you motherfucker. And Cassidy reaches over the top and like baps him in the back of the head like, you're supposed to come up so I can hit you again. He's like, motherfucker, I ain't putting that one over. It just, you could, and then Private Party tried to do too much and it got sloppy. I had to fast forward some. Then you knew that at some point Olivier and Page are going to screw up, right? Well, they did. They did a spot where they screwed up and almost hit each other, but then they had a double knockout when the other guy shoved them, but it wasn't the finish. And then Mark Quinn kicked out of Page's buckshot lariat. Page buckshot lariated him, and he kicked out of it. So now that fucking move is horseshit because here an underneath tag team guy got hit by Adam Page's buckshot lariat and kicked out of it. Then Private Party hits their great finish, the Hurricane Run off the top end of the fucking cutter on Olivier. But they've never beat anybody with that. Page saved, and they buried that too. Then they had another miscue where Kenny Olivier boosts the Private Party member into a backflip Pele kick onto Adam Page. Then Page and Olivier both hit finishes at the same time on Mark Quinn from a different direction, sandwiched him. Then Olivier hits another one of his finishes on him, 1, 2, 3. It was overdone. They had so many miscues in trying to tease. Are they going to hit? Are they going to punch on purpose? Are they going to fight? Whatever, that it became gaga and phony and too contrived. They could have done a little misdirection spot or maybe the two. But they got to go overboard because they're not trying to make anybody believe anything. They're trying to put on a fucking performance, and it shows. So anyway, boom, and they beat Private Party again, and it was overdone. And then on the screen, there's Pac in the back, stretching Michael, knock it the fuck off and get off my television. Like he is Kenny Olivier's child. And Olivier stands there with the dramatic face watching the whole thing and listening to Pac tell him it's going to keep happening until you fucking fight me or whatever. And then he panics and runs back there too late, obviously. Like, nice to have friends like Olivier. And it's what the fuck? Why does this fucking Nakazawa keep coming to the building?
Well, how come? Didn't this happen like a month ago on TV?
Yes, he keeps going in and attacking this guy from behind. It's supposed to be Kenny Olivier's friend. Well, at some point, either hire the fucking guy security. He's a grown man and supposedly a pro wrestler, so why do we feel this sorry for him that he's getting punked out in the locker room weekly by Pac to begin with? And what's Kenny Olivier supposed to be, his protector, like his goddamn guardian angel? It's not like he's beating up Olivier's child or slapped his daughter or whatever the fuck.
But when it happened last time, which I think was the week where Kenny Omega got beat up 3 different times, he got his ass kicked in the match and went in the back, got jumped again, and then during the Dark Order fiasco at the end of the show. But Pac and Nakazawa disappeared from that room. Remember, they were in the room and then Omega ran back and then they were gone. Nothing was ever said from what I remember, and there are points where I do mute the show, I have to admit. Nothing has been said about where they went and what happened, and then all of a sudden it's happened again. Did it happen last time? Did he attack Nakazawa last time? Nobody knows.
I think all this time, old Pac has been treating old Michael Nakazawa like the South Georgia Extras did to Ned Beatty in fucking Deliverance. And I would just wonder if the baby oil came in handy, since that's his gimmick. Maybe that's how that whole thing got started. He said, well, he's already got the oil. Anyway, squeal like a pig. Well, speaking of which, guess who was up next on last night's program? For the Women's Championship, Chris Statlander, the alien from the Omega universe or whatever, taking on Riho. And actually, that was supposed to be on the previous week's program, but they let Chris Statlander off of her commitment for AEW because they didn't think to check. She was booked on a Wednesday, right? Well, it was fucking New Year. She was booked on an independent show somewhere.
Oh, no, not just any independent show. Bar wrestling.
Okay, well, there you go. And they actually announced, we're going to give her the title match next week so she can honor her commitments. I'm all for honoring commitments, but this is national television, and are you fucking serious? You know what I would have done if it was the WWF production I was in charge of or some major organization? I would have said, find out who owns this fucking Bar Wrestling and cut them a check for $2,500, which is a lot more than fucking Chris Statlander's presence would add to the gate. And say, sorry, we had to take your talent for national television. Good day to you. See yourself out.
You know who owns Bar Wrestling, right?
Well, I assume it's Dick Boy.
Yeah, it's Dick Boy.
But I assume a Dick Boy would also rather had to check for $2,500 and have an alien from the Omega Galaxy fucking fly in for his fucking little show.
No, he needs the money.
You don't run a goddamn national television promotion like this. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. I found that out when I was competing with WWE and OVW for guys' dates on guys. But compensate and go on. Anyway, what I liked about this was Brandy on color just shitting on everybody. He told Exhibit he should take the mask off. And said she didn't care about the fucking match and blah, blah, blah. But here is a lesson, folks, in once again, a vanity project, picking the wrong people to listen to and not putting your foot down. This match came on at 24 after the hour. That's when the entrances started. The bell rang at 27 after the hour. After a couple minutes, they went to a break. But of all fucking matches, they used picture-in-picture on this match with Chris Statlander and a Riho that's a third of her size. And also, they went to break at 29 after the hour and came back at 31 after the hour, at least according to my DVR, which means that the timing, they were actually not only in break at the 30-minute mark when people start switching around and they would see a commercial on TNT, but they came back on a fucking match between Chris Statlander and Riho on national television. And it continued. Then here comes Brandy's group that she's recruiting for. And the bald girl grabbed Riho and railed her, but Chris Statlander took the bald girl out and then dove on Kong to show that she don't want to be a part of this. Then Brandy comes to the ring and has a face-off with Chris Statlander, which lasts uncomfortably, phonily long until a bald, male pervert-looking fuck in a white coat, I'm not making this up, crawled out from under the ring with paint on his face and the color of Uncle Fester, skin tone. And the Exhibit says, "That's Luther, the Japanese deathmatch wrestling legend. Now they are hiring retired Japanese outlaw guys." Once again, Alexander Hammerstone, Jacob Fatu have been signed to MLW, but the billionaire is bringing in retired Japanese outlaw mud show talent.
Well, for the same reason that Brandy's on there and the Bucks got the Dark Order in there. It's because he's Jericho's buddy.
Well, anyway, here came Luther. And Statlander in a stagey fashion goes to slap Brandy, but Luther grabs her arm. But then as they interact in a stagey, phony way, Kong clotheslines Chris Statlander, and the fans are standing, staring and booing, and not in a good booing fashion. They're like, what the fuck is going on here? Suddenly, the match started again. They both got back in. The fucking Brandy's people are leaving. Back and forth, false finishes. Riho and Chris Statlander. Riho kicks out of everything that Chris Statlander can possibly do. And then Kong comes back down to ringside and trips Chris Statlander, and Riho rolls her up and beats her. Hot garbage booking in action. Then Kong gets in the ring and levels Statlander, and the bald girl beats up Riho. And Shida jumps in from the front row to make the save, but Britt Baker blew it off because they're switching her heel because she's buried his baby face. And this whole fucking fiasco ended up at 38 minutes after the hour, 14 minutes of national television time for a Japanese schoolgirl fetish. There you go.
Go home heat. They are an act in AEW to the AEW fans, not even us, that have go home heat right now. No one wants to see this. This is clearly a vanity thing for Brandy. Brandy should not be in this role. I know you liked her in commentary, and it was certainly fun to hear someone.
Well, no, I said it was the only fucking saving grace of this. I didn't say she was any good either. It just she was taking the piss out of all of them.
Yeah, well, that was the one thing that I did like was someone finally saying, hey, what's up with the mask? And then he said, well, I wrestle in the tradition of the luchador, whatever his bullshit answer was.
Yeah.
But even she didn't put over the match on. She's like, I don't need to be here. I could be taking a nap or whatever the fuck she said. She's putting down this world championship match. The women's division has been a fucking disaster. For everyone who said Chris Statlander is ready to go, she has a lot of potential. This match showed you that she wasn't. I am not a Riho fan. I like Britt Baker sitting at ringside dressed like the fucking bitchy aunt at Passover. I really like that. But I mean, just, it's, the women's division in AEW has been fucking awful. It's been booked horribly. This segment sucked.
All right, calm down there.
So
calm
bad.
down now, cowboy.
But
Hold
they
on.
keep doing it. They keep doubling down. Everyone keeps saying in the nicest way. You know, everyone, people who support AEW keep saying, stop doing these segments, and they keep doing them. They keep doing them.
Okay, we got to get finished with this. I got things to do.
Okay.
Because there's still some good stuff.
I'm sorry.
Chris Daniels versus Sammy Guevara. I'm a Chris Daniels fan. I helped recruit and sign him for Ring of Honor, that last run starting in 2010. I've always liked him as a person and a professional. They had a good, solid match. Sammy Guevara's got good heel facials and personality, as we said, that chicken shit, smiley, smarmy face. Daniels was leading this, had it going. I thought this is the perfect example of, because this was one of Sammy Guevara's better matches also, because Daniels can do that amazingly at his age. He's over 50 now, but he looks great and he can do that style and solidly. But also he can help a guy like Sammy make it make sense, which he did. And they had a great match going on. And I know they're doing a thing with, is Chris Daniels lost it? Is he over the hill, or is he lost a step, or the dork order thing, or whatever the fuck? But just out of the blue, here comes Pentagon and challenges on the mic, supposedly challenging Daniels, according to what the announcer said, to do his Arabian moonsault, but he just doing a move or whatever. I didn't know what the fuck. And Daniels is distracted by him, and Sammy Guevara hits him from behind 1, 2, 3. Easily, instead of anybody coming out on the microphone, Daniels could have slipped up on his own, or even not even slipped up and just put Sammy Guevara over with no bullshit, and it would have fit this story, and it wouldn't have ruined the match, which was a very good match. And that probably wasn't even Chris Daniels' fucking idea to have all the bullshit. But as soon as he loses, here comes the Dork Order and the Crappers. And we're going to call him Fat Mask. The leader, Fat Mask, with his evil voice that sounds stagey and fucking overblown, over-the-top delivery like a community playhouse Orson Welles. I'd love to hear him read the fucking War of the Worlds on Thanksgiving or Halloween. He tells Daniels that nobody believes in him. He's lost a step, blah, blah, blah. He's trying to give him a mask to join the Dork Order, Dork Odor. JR makes a recruiting joke. A lot of people want to join up, and people join up around here. Daniels refuses it. The heels get brief, shitty heat. The Bucks and SCU hit and clear the ring, stop the Crappers, just like I did earlier, stop the Crappers up, and beat up all the heels with big moves. I guess to get even for when all the heels beat them up and left them laying. But when you're beating up heels that nobody gives a fuck about to begin with, it was meaningless gaga. And once again, all this aftermatch shit, this is what these guys do not have the goddamn experience to put together. It's not the matches. It's the gaga, as they say, around the matches. But at least on this show, they did good at the top of the hour. They had the Lucha Brothers and the Rhodeses entrances and had that match. And tell me, I've wrote these notes here, but tell me if you get this and if you thought the same thing or now that you think of it. This looked like an 80s All Japan or New Japan match where you'd have a great U.S. tag team against a great foreign team, whether they were Mexican or British or even the Japanese guys. There was some style clash, but they were both good enough to do each other's shit, kind of. Right?
Yeah, there is one thing I noticed lately. It's that it seems in a lot of these Cody matches, I don't know if it's that he gets in his mind before the match that he wants to do something, but it seems like there's always something he wants to do that it doesn't get done properly because it's obviously too planned out or too choreographed or too overthought, as opposed to just work your style and work your match and do your thing.
Yeah, that's what I like the Lucha Brothers better here than any probably match I've ever seen because once again, the shit made sense. They got heat on Dustin, who fought for a tag, etc. The match made sense. Cody does. They went too far into the area of doing the Lucha Brothers stuff versus the Lucha Brothers doing their stuff because they wanted to make it exciting. But at the same point, Cody and Dustin's where your money is, and Lucha Brothers, I'm sorry, in this country at this time right now are not going to be major pay-per-view financial ratings draws. So anyway, but this was a good match until here's the problem with Lucha is that so much of the botches and flops and distractions are taken for granted because it doesn't make a lot of sense anyway, and it's the spectacle. But trying to do an American finish with timing, that's where they fell apart. Dustin is down. Everybody's down. He finally hits something out of the heat where everybody's down, the Lucha Brothers and Dustin's going to try to make the tag. One of the Lucha Brothers tries to sneak a chair in the ring, which is Double A's spot. Arn comes around and kicks it out of his hand. And that means the coach prevented somebody from doing something illegal. And then that guy's going to run, you can tell later, is going to run at Dustin, and Dustin's going to hit him with a spine buster and then make a hot tag. Well, after the chair kick, both the Lucha Brothers just walked over to Arn and just stopped and ignored Dustin, who was still selling and trying to get up and figuring the guy's coming at him. And he stood there like a zombie, teetering and tottering, not tagging, while he waited for the Lucha Brother to come at him for the spine buster, which then he finally hit so that they could milk the tag. But he milked it good enough, they still got a pop on it. And Cody went wild on the comeback. Then at a point, the Lucha Brothers cut Cody off and did some weird shit that culminated in one of them picking Cody up at his height and folding him up and dropping him on his head, which I'd take out of the repertoire if I was Cody because he's a star and doesn't need to be doing that shit. But finally, Dustin hits a finish on one of the Lucha Brothers. It wasn't the best Rhodes Brothers match, but it was definitely the best Lucha Brothers match for the reasons I think I just mentioned. It made sense. But they've got to pay attention to their ring positioning because that just shows the greenness of the indy mentality. They buried Dustin on that fucking last bit. He should have gone ahead and tagged, but he was trying to give the guy the spot that they were going to do or whatever the fuck. I don't know.
As I said before, I'm kind of sick of the Lucha Brothers. I know they're talented.
Every week.
And I will say one interesting thing was during this match, I flipped the channels just to see what was on NXT, and the moment I flipped, there was just Dusty. Because it's in the middle of the tag team tournament, and there's Dusty. So Dusty's image was on one channel, and Cody and Dustin were on the other at the same time.
Well, there you go. The Rhodes family still making news. Anyway, then Tony Schiavone went to get Cody's answer on MJF's challenge, and Arn he interrupted and said, "We'll get back to you." And I mean, his delivery was fine, but why didn't they give him a little bit more pithy comment to make there? But anyway, you missed something because this was the night of the big Memphis Legends ceremony. They had promoted this. They promoted it on the week before on the television. The Legends of Memphis Wrestling are going to be there. They promoted it on Twitter. People have been doing interviews about it. There was Austin Idol. There was Handsome Jimmy Valiant. There was Doug Gilbert. There was Brian Christopher. There was who else? Rock and Roll Express. Angelo Poffo and Randy Savage. We'll get to that in a second. Did I land Dave Brown? Did I miss anybody that they announced they were going to?
It was actually Eddie and Tommy Gilbert.
Eddie and Tommy Gilbert and Doug Gilbert was there for it, right? And Angelo and Poffo and Randy Savage and Lanny Poffo was there for them. And at one point, Tom Pritchard brought up, where the fuck is Bill Dundee?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't Bill Dundee be a part of this? Randy Hales, ? Because Randy was helping him contact the guys. And then JR tweeted that Dundee was on the list that he saw. Dundee was never on the list that I saw, and Dundee wasn't there. And nobody seems to know. But we know why Jerry Lawler wasn't there. The next steps in the hierarchy would be Bill Dundee, Jimmy Valiant, Austin Idol, and Dutch Mantell. No, Dutch doesn't travel a lot anymore.
Fabulous ones.
Well, I was about to say in the singles ranks, and Jackie Fargo, of course, passed away, and the teams would be not even the Rock and Roll Express, to be quite honest. They're legends from Memphis, but they were never the over team in the Memphis territory. The tag teams, really in modern days, would be the Fabulous ones, because then you'd have to go back to dead people.
Plus Jerry Jarrett, obviously.
Well, and Jerry Jarrett, which was maybe there was Jerry probably wanted paid. But anyway, they advertised this. They promoted this. They tweeted about this after Arn said, we'll get back to you on MJF's challenge. Alex Marvez is in the back with Lanny Poffo, and I'm not knocking Lanny Poffo, but Lanny Poffo's not a Memphis legend. I will buy WWF wrestling legend, but Lanny literally only worked the Memphis territory for 9 months in 1984 when his dad and his brother made up with Jerry Jarrett. That was it for the entire – he worked for Nick Goulas a while in Nashville, never in Memphis. And when ICW ran opposition a few times. So Lanny was the Memphis legend that Alex Marvez talked to backstage where they showed. And Brian, you said, I missed the ceremony. How did I miss the ceremony?
Yeah, I didn't see any of it. Yeah.
They showed 10 seconds of B-roll of the legend ceremony. The guy standing in the ring, not even with audio, just B-roll. And then had Lanny do a promo putting everybody over and pitch to the YouTube channel next Tuesday if you want to see it.
Oh, come on.
Of all the people that could have been interviewed.
Austin Idol should have been doing that.
He worked Memphis,
Jimmy.
like I said, 9 months. Austin Idol is there. Handsome Jimmy is there. But the point is they advertised it, and then they milked it to the YouTube channel and didn't even do a 2-minute package. And for once, I was actually interested in seeing part of their program. But they advertised it as 10 seconds of B-roll. That's why you missed it, Brian.
Did Lanny do a poem?
He did not.
I was busy teaching Nakazawa how to go down on himself.
Lanny likes us. And he's friends with Mary Furpo, too. Come on.
I'm not saying anything wrong.
Then MJF did a promo again, thankfully, at least 2 weeks in a row. But he was in mid-promo when they came back from the commercial. Apparently, he had gotten a bad cue, and he had to start over. And so, like I just said, and I know how he feels. I've had that happen. And he's calling out Cody, but here comes DDP. And DDP plugged everything he's ever been involved in and then addressed MJF.
Well, first of all, you're going past one of the big things. He's calling out Cody, and the commentators are like, well, Cody can't come out. He may not be here anymore, or he may be busy.
Yeah.
He may be doing. What do you mean? He was just out there 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, he's limping. We heard. He calls Cody out, and DDP comes out in his place. And as I said, DDP plugged everything, and it got to the point where he had just turned his back on it. And he was doing all his catchphrases, but come on, there's MJF just over in the corner waiting, like, what the fuck? Come on. And I wish I had thought of this when I was working with MJF on TV, but I'd like somebody to say, can I call you MF for short? But anyway, Diamond Dallas Page offers to wrestle MJF. But then MJF brings out the Butcher, the Baker, and the Candlestick Maker. Now they've got him involved with this outlaw shit. And MJF gave Page the opportunity, you can kiss my ring and get the fuck out of the ring, or you can go straight to hospice. And then he said, and I'll bang your daughters. And he gave him the bang, and DDP snatched him by, that was great. Snatched him by the neck. But then DDP, the 65-year-old man, legend, yes, but he beats up the brand new heel tag team both. Then has an awkward exchange with MJF where he can't hit him because he don't want to take the heat off of him. And then Wardlow can't sell anything. So then MJF ball kicks DDP. This was the first MJF segment that I wish it had just been him talking.
Yeah.
Because when they try to do the fucking gaga with the rest of everybody, then instead of MJF bringing All Elite Wrestling up, as is usual the case, All Elite Wrestling brought MJF down.
DDP, who for a 65-year-old doesn't look a day over 75. He's out there, and
he's still in great shape, but come on.
But he looks awful. He looks awful. He's out there.
And now some people are going to say, well, the Rock and Roll Express won the NWA tag title. Well, yes, it was a fucking tag team match, and it was blah, blah, blah. Not just, I'm just going to from scratch beat up both these guys and roll them out of the ring. Anyway.
And just he's putting over all of his own shit. And it was, at this point, I'm ready to say, if you are friends with Cody Rhodes, you should not be hired to do anything on All Elite Wrestling Television. If you have any relationship with the Rhodes family pre-existing this program, please do not be on this show. I don't want to see Dallas Page out there. I don't want to see another one of these promos from Dallas Page. He got back up. And first of all, they bury the Butcher, the Baker, and the Candlestick Maker. They at least have a look. You could do something with him. Completely buried. They can't even beat up old Dallas Page. And then after he gets his comeuppance finally, he just hops back up and starts celebrating in the crowd.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
The next match was a 6-person tag, and I do say persons because there were not 6 men in it. It was the Best Friends and Pockets, my little dog Pockets, against Luchasaurus, Jungle Boy, and Marco Stunted Growth. And once again, love Luchasaurus. I'm really into Jungle Boy now. It's insulting to have Marco Stunt around. I don't want to see my little dog Pockets, so I fast forwarded. I don't have any idea what happened in this match, and I don't care.
It was a very indie match where, of course, Marco Stunt was able to compete competitively against these much larger guys. Trent, I got to say, I wish he had a last name. Trent looks good in the ring. Chuck Taylor is not for me. Orange Cassidy
is not for anybody.
You know what? I got a kick out of it once, like 9 weeks ago, and it's been the same thing ever since. Is if he's just going to keep doing this every week, again, I don't need to see this. Not a big fan.
They're afraid to let him do any more because the other shit's silly too. But they want so they don't let down the fans for the kind of people who like that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing those people like. They want him to be on the show for some reason for them. So they just have to. It's like Sonny Kiss ran out and didn't even get in the ring, but joined in the babyface girls. Insert joke here. I'm not to fucking make a save on the heel girls. But but he's never featured on television because they're embarrassed by some of the silly gimmicks that they signed up that won't play on fucking national TV.
Hey, what's that squeaking behind you? There's some kind of noise all of a sudden behind you.
Could it be Riho?
I don't know if it's Riho.
I don't know. Maybe it's Riho talking. You know, like on Land of the Giants, when they heard the little people talking, it was kind of like a squeak off in the distance. I don't know. Maybe my chair? I don't know.
It may be your chair, but
I'm not in charge of chairs, Ron. Why you got my chair run down so low? Anyway, the last match on this fucking journey through hysteria, this schizophrenic fucking television program that goes from the outhouse to the penthouse and back again in the twinkling of an eye, was the Chris Jericho, the main event actually, the Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley situation. Will Moxley join the Inner Circle? They've got a table set up with buckets of bubbly. Here comes Jericho and the Inner Circle. It was Guevara. We didn't see LAX or personal pronouns or what's their goddamn name? Shit.
Proud and Powerful.
Proud and Powerful.
They were a catering.
But anyway, there's Hager there and Guevara there, and Moxley accepts the invitation against what everybody thinks is going to happen and joins in the celebration. And it went forever, and I see what they played music and then they dropped music. They looked like not only were they were milking it because the longer the celebration went, the more people would believe it, but also I think they wanted to go off the air at just the right moment, and they were milking. Because it went a while. This got old in the middle. But then somehow they brought the music down, and Moxley said, one more thing, Chris. And of course, he got the keys to the car and all this other stuff. He said, just kidding. I wouldn't join this fucking thing, but fuck you. And he bottled Jericho, broke the bottle over his head, and that looked good. And he was slick with the fucking bottle switch. They were swigging from him all over the place, and then he set his down and did some shit and went back and picked up just the right bottle. But it was slick. And that got a huge pop because they'd milked him into thinking that he's fucking joined and this is going to be horrible. And then he breaks the bottle over his head and Jericho's head and goes out and celebrates the people. That got a big pop. It was okay. It was kind of like an old WCW angle where, fucking Shitstain was trying to convince people one thing was going to happen and then swerve them. I think I like the swerve. I think the swerve went too long before the reveal of the swerve. Does that make any sense?
The longer it went, the more I was convinced that it was going to be a double swerve where swerve the fans. Now I swerved you. The longer it went and it kept going. And, I think about you in Mid-South having the birthday party, or not the birthday party, but the celebration with the cake. Birthday party for the dog was a different territory.
Yes.
I think about you having, that thing didn't go for 7 minutes. It would have been awful if it went that long.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to do something. The longer it goes, the more it becomes Monday Night Raw. And I thought this went too long, and I can understand why. But, here we are. We got Moxley against Jericho, and I think those are two main event guys. So I think that's at least a positive. And I still hear
the squeak is on your side.
No, it's on your side.
I'm hearing the squeak in my headset.
I'm hearing it from your side.
I hear no squeak.
Take off your headset. There's a squeak on your side.
I put the headset on. I'm hearing a squeak. I take the headset off. There's no fucking squeak.
Well, hold on. I'm going to take the headset off.
You're a squeaky motherfucker, Brian Lance.
Hold on.
I hear it.
All right, maybe it is on my side.
It's there. Yeah. Well, it's okay. Then that's a good place to end up. The show went off the air, and Brian Last is looking for a squeak, and we're going to be back and relentless this year, ladies and gentlemen. If you think I didn't shut up before, you're going to be amazed, astonished, and completely mystified, gobsmacked, and bumfuzzled by what I'm going to be saying this year on both shows, The Experience and The Drive-Thru and YouTube, and every other form of communication that doesn't involve me leaving my house. Is this a good place to wind things up?
Yes, I need to find this squeak.
Go chase that squeak down. You've got have you got a mouse in your pocket? What's the matter with you, boy? Boy? I said boy anyway. Folks, we're going to keep watching these fucking Wednesday night shows until my brain explodes, which probably be about 3 more weeks. We're going to continue doing great broadcasts, and until next week when we do it all again, for Brian, it's JC. Thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody, and Happy New Year.